Okay, we've got the live feed up, and I appreciate Jared working on that. And at this time, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Mahomet-Seymour Board of Education at 7:02 p.m. on Monday, August 17th. At this time, I'd like to remind folks that are coming in person, if you'd like to speak, to fill out the visitor guidelines. If you want to make comments, and get those to Dawn over in the corner. I'd also like to remind everyone to please sign in if you're a guest and silence your cell phones. We've got 4 board members in the room. On WebEx, we do have 3 board members, and that would be Mr. Keith, Dr. Schultz, and Ms. Hennessy. So I was asked to make that clear. I think there was some confusion last meeting on who was on WebEx. So we do have 3 board members that are participating via WebEx tonight. Roll call, please.
Giles.
Here.
Keith.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Schultz.
Here.
Larson. Here. Hennessy.
Here.
McComb.
Here. Stand for the pledge, please. I allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. This time, board members, you've had a chance to see the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, can we have a vote, please, on the agenda?
Larson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Giles.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. And are there any more public participation forms that need to go to Dawn? If we do, okay, Steve's working on that out in the hallway. Okay. Before we begin tonight, I've got a message for everybody. The current board has been together now for what has proven to be a difficult 15 months. Working relationships among our board members and board relations with key district staff members have proven to be very difficult. As a group, we met with a consultant from the Illinois Association of School Boards back on August 5th, 2019, and again on October 7th, 2019. Attempts to discuss and establish working agreements for the board failed in both those attempts, as have subsequent attempts to negotiate some type of simple board working agreements. Early on in this process, I sensed the public expected a level of patience and understanding as we move forward with this new board. I was hopeful we'd eventually come together and begin to operate more smoothly as a group, but that has not happened. From my standpoint, meetings have become increasingly more difficult, and I know that several board members and high school and school administrators have shared identical concerns with myself and Dr. Hall. Beyond those concerns, the operating issues with our board have become increasingly more apparent to the public. There have been numerous and increasing comments from community members referencing unproductive meetings, lack of respect among board members, lack of respect for district employees, and poor board behavior and conduct. To be clear, the public concerns I'm referencing are not about the fact that we disagree. The concerns are about how we disagree, how we treat each other, lack of respect for our superintendent, district employees, and along with a poor example we set for our staff, students, and community. There's a groundswell of concern building in our community and a growing call that our behavior as a board must change. So tonight I'm exercising my authority as president of the board. Board members will provide a copy of operating guidelines for board meetings in your board packet for tonight. These guidelines have been vetted by the IASB and by our attorney, Jeff Funk, and represent what I intend to enforce beginning tonight and moving forward. I truly feel that following the guidelines are in the best interest of not just the board and administration, but most importantly, the community and the students that we serve. The guidelines are, number one, after the agenda is published and distributed to the public, only discussion items can be added to the agenda. Action items need to be on the public agenda, included in the board packet, so board members have time to consider them and the public knows what is going to be voted on. Attempts to add action items during the meeting will be ruled out of order by the chair. And I'll add that is in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Number two, the board can always modify your proposals or motions. However, if board members wish to present a completely alternative proposal or a new proposal, those need to be submitted to the board president and superintendent no later than 7 days prior to the board meeting, which would be the Monday before a Monday meeting. This gives staff time to vet the proposal and allows it to go out in the board packet so board members can review the proposal and prepare. It also allows the public to know what's going to be voted on. Number three, the board president and superintendent will place time guidelines on the agenda for each item. We'll do our best to follow the time guidelines. The chair reserves the discretion to allow more time for an item if it's determined that more time is warranted. Four, normally we'll do our best to end meetings by 10 p.m. At 9:15, the chair will look at the remaining business and recommend adjusting time guidelines or tabling items if necessary. Number five, during board discussions, board members will signal the chair when they wish to speak by raising their hand and wait to speak until they are acknowledged. Board members will not interrupt other board members. Excluding asking questions, each board member can speak out twice to share an opinion on a business item, and as in Roberts, for a maximum of 2 minutes at a time. Time limits may be lifted by the chair during study sessions and special meetings depending on the situation. Number six, a board member can suspend discussion and press towards the vote by calling the question. If the question is called and that call receives a second, there will be a vote to end discussion. If the vote to end discussion passes, and that would be a modified Roberts on a 4-3 vote, the board then proceeds to vote on that item. If the call to question fails to pass, then the discussion will continue on that item. Number seven, out of respect for our staff members and for board members' time, if board members have multiple questions or specific technical questions regarding a business item, they should reach out to the superintendent prior to the meeting. All board members will be copied on the response, so all board members have that information. Number eight, during board meetings, board members should set a tone that treats each other, district staff, and guests, and all presenters with respect. Number nine, while we welcome public input, out of respect for meeting timeliness, we will return to previous board policy, which allows for public comments near the beginning of the meeting. We'll discontinue our experiment of allowing comments during discussion of an action item or at the end of the meeting. Out of respect for everyone, we will enforce the 5-minute time limit per person. Those that have longer or more complex messages are encouraged to email them to the entire board so your thoughts can be considered. Those emails will be included in board minutes posted on the district website so everyone has an opportunity to review these thoughts and opinions. And number 10, board members should only abstain, which would be an abstention, a pass, or voting present, only when they have a personal conflict of interest with an item being voted. If there is no personal conflict of interest, all board members should cast a yes or no vote on the item, and that is out of Roberts. Finally, as we bring staff and students back into our building, in order to facilitate more effective meetings and discussions, I invite all board members to return to attend our meetings live and in person. We will continue to distance from one another in the room, we'll continue to limit room capacity, we'll wear masks. I believe our community wants to see us working together in the boardroom, and I would ask each of you to please join us. That's what I've got for this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on the consent agenda? Is there anything anybody wants to remove for further discussion?
This is Ken. I'd like to remove personnel changes.
Okay, we'll pull out personnel changes. Is there anything else?
I would like to note that it's a point of order. The policies violate policy 2240 of our board policy.
Okay, which policies?
Press policies 103 and 104, the adoption of them this evening would violate policy 2240 of our adopted board policies.
Can you explain?
Those are press updates, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. Is it discussion time?
no,
No, okay.
this is on consent agenda. I'm just looking to understand.
Well, me too,
Okay,
because
Then we'll pull them out and discuss them separately.
that's fine.
okay, so we'll pull the press policies out. Okay, so left in the consent agenda, we have minutes, bills, treasurer's report, and approval to put the FY21 budget on display. Will you roll call vote, please?
Hennessy,
No.
Schultz,
No.
Keith,
Yes.
Giles,
Yes.
Henricks,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
McComb.
Yes, okay, we pulled out the personnel changes. Is there further discuss? Well, first of all, is there a motion to approve the personnel changes?
So,
Go ahead.
so moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion on the personnel changes, as we've asked those be pulled out.
Yeah, so my question is regarding on our meeting on the 3rd, we approved as a board to add team leaders for the year, and we set the limit at 12,000 for that. And it looks like there's been several added beyond that 12,000. I just want to understand what happened there.
Yeah, and I thought we said that the cost was approximately 12,000, but I'd like to pull up the board packet. But if you want to speak to that, Dr. Rummel?
So originally we had talked about grade level chairs, and we have one for each grade level. And then we went back because we did not have, after talking with Christine, we did not have special ed / the interventionist represented in each building. So we added one of those, one staff representative at MPE and Lincoln Trail to represent those teachers, and encore teachers. I don't recall if encore teachers were in that first group as well, but they have a very different schedule and very different teaching responsibilities to that leadership team.
Okay. Any
So,
other questions on the personnel
I'm
changes? Yeah,
just not sure in terms of process. Do we need to amend the motion from the meeting?
I don't know. What would, do we say, exactly do we say about?
You said it was a cost of $12,000, so
Cost.
the board's not comfortable adding, was it 2 extra?
It would have been, I don't remember if we included, honestly, if we included encore teachers when we did the original one. If we did, then it would be 2, and if we did not, it would be 4, it'd be 2 per building.
Just 2 more.
I think
Cost of.
if we approve the personnel changes, we pretty much approve those.
That would supersede the previous.
I think that would supersede the previous. I don't necessarily see a reason to go back and change it.
Okay, that was my only question.
Any other questions on personnel?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Did we add a fifth grade teacher?
No,
I see 2 fifth grade teachers on the personnel.
because we had one,
We had a resignation, and then back in the summer, when you were approving positions, you approved a 10th, 5th grade teacher.
so we did have one more section.
So we had not hired that 10th section that you approved back in the summer until this past week, when numbers got high.
I was under the impression this summer that it was decided not to do fifth grade. And Lindsay said she would be keeping an eye on numbers and letting us know.
But what decided that we reached the point where we needed to add a 10th section.
How many families new did we have?
I didn't get the question.
So we had like 43 new families?
I don't know how many in fifth grade.
I think there are 200, somewhere in the ballpark, it's 249, 248.
We also have a verbal agreement with the staff of good faith that we keep classes to a certain size.
right. We've got guidelines in place to trigger adding staff when it's warranted. All right, any other questions on personnel?
What would the class sizes have been if we only had 9 sections? I know.
We had only 9 sections, then our remote classes would be at about 34 to 35, and our in-person classes would be at 27, 26.
Thank you.
I have no objection to adding a fifth grade position. I actually argued earlier that we should add a fifth grade position. I'm just asking about the information being provided to the board.
My apologies for not remembering to do that. I only have.
Okay, we have a roll call vote on personnel, please.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes?
Larson,
Yes.
Giles,
Yes.
Keith,
Yes?
McComb.
Yes, all right, we pulled out press 103 and 104 because of the conflict with board policy 240. Can we have more explanation on what the conflict is?
I just believe it's a violation of the policy. I have no other issue with it besides that.
It's a press policy.
Right.
Policy committee last meeting gave Dr. Hall at the initiative of Megan Hennessy the authority to not have committee meetings because we were adopting press policy. So I'm, as a committee member, I'm surprised that my committee, like, we didn't discuss it. I'm looking for a policy because I can't pull it up on the iPad.
Wayne, are you suggesting we make a change?
I'm not suggesting anything. I was just making a point of order.
Okay. All right, well, I'm not sure what to do with that. Is there any other discussion on the press policies?
Well, how is it a violation? You can hear that.
I don't know. And I've asked. I don't know what to tell you. Lori's looking real quick.
The policy says, policy or policy revisions will not be adopted at the board meeting at which they are first introduced.
We didn't ask for them to be introduced. We said specifically that if they were things that came
Okay.
from press policy, we were adopting them. So
So it's not, okay.
I see what you're saying.
So there's not a conflict in the policies. What the conflict is, we're approving them today and when they were presented.
We have done that with other policies.
We have done that with other
I was under the impression it was okay, and that because they were press policies, I had delivered the board approximately 3 weeks ago that these would be on consent agenda,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I've heard nothing.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that. Is there anything else on the press policies? Okay, roll call vote first.
First and second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve the press policies?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I'd ask if there's more discussion, but I think we've already had that. So Don, go ahead with the vote.
Schultz,
No,
Giles,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Keith,
No,
Hennessy,
Nope.
I'm sorry,
No.
thank you, Hendricks,
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. Okay, item number 7, donations. Dr. Hall.
A donation from Julie Harper to Middletown Prairie for clear masks and ear savers of value of $200. A donation from Julie Ditmars to Middletown Prairie, a thermometer of value of $60. Joe Mercer Hill, a donation of 10 hopper balls to Middletown Prairie, value of $115. Lisa Powell, a donation of cash to Lincoln Trail for the Give Me 5 backpack program. A donation of $2,500 from the Buchanan family to the high school volleyball program. A donation of $500 to the FFA program from the H. Robert Perry Farm. And a donation of $500 to Mom's Pantry at the high school from Thomas and Janie DeWitt for a total of $3,950. So thank you, everybody, for your generosity.
Is there a motion to approve the donations?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on donations. Very much appreciated. We have a vote, please.
Keith,
yes,
Larson,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Schultz,
yes,
Giles,
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. All right, it's communication time. Is there anyone here tonight from the PTO? How about the MSEA? Lori, anything from the foundation?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, visitors. What do we have, Don? Thank you. Looks like we have 5 speaking in person. And we'll just go in order. I'd like to remind everybody that there is a 5-minute limit. I'll give a 1-minute warning when you got a minute left. If you go that far. First up is LaShondra Glover. LaShondra?
Can she see the timer and everything?
Come on in. You can stand at the podium.
Back to you, Director, so she can see the timer.
Huh?
So she can see the timer.
Yeah. There is a 5-minute limit, and I will give you a warning if you get down to 1 minute left.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome, Ms. Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is LaShondra Glover. I am a community member. I live in Mahomet. My children attend now Mahomet High School, Mahomet-Seymour High School. I have 2 freshmen. They're twins. I wrote down what I have to say, so excuse the reading. In the last school board meeting I attended, we were encouraged to love our neighbors as ourselves. Oh, and this is my husband, Jardell.
Hey, John.
We were encouraged to love our neighbors as ourselves. We were quoted the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal the perfect mix of church and state, right? I spoke from a personal experience that my children had, as it is my responsibility to take their experiences personally. Here's what I found to be true and evident. Some of you would rather think of me as an angry Black woman than see the passion I have for equity in a place I call home. It is more comfortable for you to think of this movement as a special interest group of non-believers who have no right to tell you what to do. Citizens, elected board members of Mahomet School Board, Dr. Hall, if you're curious about what a committee on racial justice looks like, join the committee, co-chair, engage in the conversation without name calling. If you want to know, ask. My children and their friends had to hear their teachers read a racial slur out loud in class. My children felt as if when it was read, people looked at them. Some looked at them with empathy, more with sympathy, and some with no emotion at all. I personally think substitutes for racial slurs, like the use of the term the N-word, is just as hurtful, potato, potato. I have a preference when it comes to the N-word. Let's try to be nice and kind to one another, neighborly, welcoming to one another, noble, proud, because this is what we need. Let's start with what is necessary, a committee to help us to nurture, because this is new to a lot of us. Then maybe we can engage in conversations and be encouraging. I know the last two start with E, but I'm headed down the road here toward empathy. And I know there's no end in that word, but that's a great place to start as we address the inequities and injustices which both begin with I. It is my responsibility as a citizen, a parent, a resident, and a stakeholder to ensure that I am doing everything in my power to create a safe and equitable environment for my children. And I'm asking for your help by being there when I can't. My confidence cannot be placed in what people teach in their homes. I would like your help and support of the committee that addresses racial inequity in our schools. A lot of emphasis was placed on when it will end. We can end the committee after you give it a chance. And when the board determines it is no longer needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Danny Teets. Danny?
Danny?
Oh, sorry.
Hey, guys.
Okay,
Hi, Dan.
we'll give you a signal if you have 1 minute or less.
Okay, thanks. So this first thing I'm gonna do is from a parent who wanted to voice some experiences that her kids had, but she knows the repercussions of that in the school district, so I'm gonna read that for her. I'm writing today about the importance of an anti-racist resolution at the Mahomet-Seymour schools. My teenagers are both students at the high school. They ask that I make my comments anonymously, since some of what I have to say involves fellow students. They don't want to make it worse than it already is, to quote my daughter. I would like to highlight 2 instances that happened to my daughter and one that she witnessed. The first instance involves a female student telling my daughter she could not be in a friend group photo before a school dance because she was too dark. meant it was my daughter's skin tone would make everyone else in the picture look pale in comparison, but this girl didn't tell the girl who was 5'10" and wearing heels that she was too tall for the picture. My daughter's not ashamed of her skin tone, but she was angered by not being included in the group photo because of it. The second instance happened when a group of my daughter's classmates were going to play a co-ed basketball game. A male student on the opposite team told my daughter he didn't want to play against her because you're kind or too good at basketball. Again, my daughter is angered at being classified by her skin tone. The final incident happened to another female student who is a Mexican American. On the day after the 2016 presidential election, a group of boys began stacking their books and binders around this girl while she was at her desk. When asked what they were doing, they responded, they were building a wall around her since President Trump was elected. What does that have to do with the anti-racism education? The argument has been made that this type of education is more suited to a family home rather than a classroom. The main instigator in all of these examples come from a two-parent, stable household. I know all of the parents. They practice their Christian faith as do their children who made these comments. I am sure this type of talk is not permitted in their homes, but our children don't always act the same way at home and at school. Anti-racism education at school is more than appropriate. It ensures all students are hearing the same message. It reinforces the message children are hopefully being taught at home, whether that comes from a Christian perspective or not. Our children and families need for you to vote yes on the anti-racism resolution that has already been proposed, or to form a board-level committee to start the work. Both of my children have had students comment to them about their skin tone in a negative way. Both of my children are white. I have to ask myself, if my children are being othered by the color of their skin, how are their classmates who are black and brown feeling? And then this is what I would like to say tonight. Like others tonight, I would like to talk about some of the statements made 2 weeks ago. It was said, I refuse to surrender my responsibilities to special interests or partisan political groups. The petition was created and signed by 650 alumni who have been through the Character Counts program and graduated while you've been board members. Others who have come as parents are taxpayers of the school district. It was said, I was elected to speak for the majority of the people. On July 3rd, prior to a board meeting where an upcoming plan for school was being discussed, one board member sent a text message that reads, if you want in-person instructions, please email or make a comment to the board by Monday. Text or email 10 more. Is that how we get a majority? This not only happens at the school board level, but also at the village board level too. On tonight's agenda, there are new rules for this board. I received an email over a week ago from a parent encouraging other parents to come on to an August 10th meeting with Lindsay, Max, and Lori to discuss modified Robert's rules. The email said that this constituent had reached out to Lindsay about making an immediate change because there seems to be an agenda being pushed by particular board members. The email says, Dr. Hall was very open to my suggestions and receptive to my concerns. She agreed with everything I said, and was encouraged to hear that I believe the community of Mahomet also wants to see a positive change in their meetings. Since 2 board members were present to discuss and make rules about the way a meeting should be run, it seems like they may have had a committee meeting. Of course, we wouldn't want a special interest group dictating what happens at our public meetings. I hope that the board will look for more details of that committee, keeping in line with past practices. Finally, I'm still waiting to see the remote learning plan mandated by ISD. It is supposed to be on the district website.
Your time. I'm sorry. Thank you. Next is Chris Rath. Chris?
I just want to make sure that anybody participating virtually is able to actually hear me.
Well, the mics are all on.
Okay. Sorry.
We can hear you.
So I'm
Thank
sure
you.
you're all as happy to see me. I'm sorry. You can't hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Chris,
Okay, I'm gonna start again then. So I'm sure you're all as happy to see me as I am to see you. A few days ago, I decided that I am willingly offering myself up as a sacrificial lamb and will say the things that a significant number of teachers, staff, parents, and students want to say but are afraid to or can't. My parents didn't raise me to be a quitter, to be quiet, to allow people to use me as a doormat, nor to sit back and allow people to be ganged up on and not act upon what I witness. So for those of you that have made a point to play street ball, let's start the game. I've been patient. I've been empathetic and compassionate about this school district's plight for reopening school this fall since March 12th, the last day of in-school instruction for the 2019-2020 school year. Do not confuse my patience, empathy, compassion, and total support for this district's teachers, staff, parents, and students with those of you on this board that are blatantly and openly undermining the democratic process and willfully doing everything in your perceived power to silence the voices of Megan, Colleen, and Ken, which by proxy silence my voice and the voices of the people that elected them. Who are the board members I'm referring to? Max, Lori, Jeremy, Merle, Lindsay. I'm lumping you into that bunch as well. I've either attended or watched every single board meeting that's been held since moving here 12 years ago, and I am disgusted with the behavior of the board members I just mentioned, as well as others. For stakeholders that haven't been paying attention, here are some examples for you. Max, as the board president, you can't manage to go an entire meeting without deferring to Lindsay for guidance on anything. You call out, talk over, cut off, yell at, and completely disregard Colleen, Megan, and Ken because they ask questions. Do you not want them answered? You're not a leader, which is evident because every single board meeting is chaos and you let it happen. Lori, every chance you get, you say, but I'm a social worker that has worked in so many schools with so many types of kids. I'm patient and I'm willing to listen. But your actions and your words, they're the exact opposite. You also call out, talk over, cut off, yell at, and completely disregard Colleen, Megan, and Ken because they ask questions. Do you speak to your social worker students like that? Do you teach your social work and field interns to speak like that as well? Did you talk to my disabled child like that when you were his social worker here? I bet many people don't know that you call, text, email, or private message through social media the people that have said things not in favor of you. And I don't have social media. And if I am speaking, I don't have social media. That's a lie. You can take back 10 seconds. Thank you. I'm surprised you haven't done it to me either. You said that you've given up on trying to foster any sort of relationship with the board members you oppose. You make it a point to talk about how wonderful our facilities appear. Is that what you're most concerned with, appearances? Jeremy, do you tell your patients that God will heal them if they just love themselves as they love their neighbor? Not every person in the Mahomet-Seymour communities is a believer, and there's a reason why there's a separation of church and state. Leave religion out of the discussions and stick to the facts. You also call out, talk over, cut off, yell at, and completely disregard Colleen, Megan, and Ken because they ask questions. Is the reason you visibly check out during board meetings because you're so tired of fighting against them? Merle, you also call out, talk over, cut off, yell at, and completely disregard, again, Colleen, Megan, and Ken because they ask questions. I primarily see you sitting back in your chair with your arms folded most of the time. Are you listening to what's going on around you? Or are you sleeping with your eyes open until the voices in the room get so loud that you wake up and then join in on the witch hunt? Lindsay, you didn't properly respond to my FOIA request, as evidenced by my complaint to and subsequent response to the Attorney General's office. So how am I supposed to have confidence that you're going to lead this district in the right direction? I don't care how many special boards you've been appointed to by your peers. Your performance and treatment of people here and behind closed doors speaks louder than any board or committee you've been appointed to or asked to sit on. You hold secret meetings. Did you or any of the board members ever stop to think that that is likely the reason people won't meet with you in private? You twist people's words around to fit your narrative and make yourself out to be the hero. Lindsay, Lori, and Max, how many people know about the secret meeting you had with the group of parents that wanted to push 5-day in-person school week and formulate the board guidelines shown up tonight that board members are supposed to follow as a way to shut up Megan, Colleen, and Ken. If I were a betting woman, I'd be rich because that's been kept under wraps. The bottom line is this. You have every teacher, staff, parent, and student begging you for answers to reopen school. You have people of color and their peers sitting here outside begging for answers.
All right, your time with an extra 15 seconds.
Thank you. The bottom line is this. If you're not calling Megan and Ken and you're hell-bent on working against them at every possible turn and in every possible way, resign. Get your acts together now. You work for us, not for your own special interests.
Too bad that she doesn't have her facts straight.
Let's go with Dennis Kimmy.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Dennis.
2 weeks ago, I mentioned Martin Luther King Jr.'s role of judging people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Another crucial goal of King's was to realize a colorblind society. King's 50-year-old vision is positive, forward-looking, and unifying. Historically, Americans responded fervently to King's message. Race relations have improved enormously since I was a teen in the 1960s. Today, blacks, for example, are integral and accepted participants in virtually every aspect of American life. Black athletes, entertainers, scientists, and CEOs are highly visible and openly admired by kids of all colors. The chancellor of our university, its head football coach, and even our nation's past president are black. And nobody thinks anything about it. It's normal. The only thing we wonder about our football coach is why aren't we winning more? I truly believe that most kids today don't think much about racial differences and are actually quite accepting, if we let them be. I feel like we could be on the threshold of the colorblind society King envisioned. However, I also think we are potentially on the brink of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. While I've witnessed the positive changes King desired, I've also witnessed the parallel strain of the civil rights movement that is negative, backwards-looking, divisive, and too often political. This strain divides individuals into little identity boxes. It pits them against each other as oppressors and oppressed. It demands discriminatory treatment based on race. This strain assumes monolithic thought based upon group identity. It is dismissive of diverse individual thought. For example, this strain spawned the term inauthentic black for those blacks who don't think as their identity group is supposed to think. This strain seeks to tear down one group as the price of lifting another through charges of privilege. Instead of making us colorblind, it injects race into everything. At its worst, this strain promotes destructive ideology like critical race theory. This theory declares that America is irredeemably racist and that its systems of government, justice, and education are designed specifically to uphold white supremacy. The charge of systemic racism is born of this ideology and demands that Americans totally dismantle their systems. This negative strain, unfortunately, is what I perceived in the June 6 alumni letter and associated materials, and in the proposed anti-racism resolution. That's why I had to speak up. Further compounding my perception were comments in the newspaper that history, as taught, was flawed because it was written by white men. This statement inherently supposes that all white male historians have a monolithic, racially biased view of historical facts that makes them incapable of reporting history properly. This insult sets the stage for teaching separate alternative histories, starting with one told by black historians. The subtext of this, of course, is that all black historians, because of their race, hold the same view of history. Once we venture down this road, how can we resist demands to have an Asian alternative, a Hispanic alternative, a Pacific Islander alternative, and so on into an endless and divisive racialized chaos where the kids don't know what to think or who to trust. However, they would certainly get the message that what you think and who you are is defined by the identity box into which you were born. This very un-king-like approach promotes the opposite of critical thinking, corrodes our sense of community, and refutes the notion of individual will, the cornerstone of our republic. If we share King's positive forward-looking dream of a colorblind society, then a better way forward is to adopt a colorblind approach. We could consider, for example, developing a universal culture of respect that is all-inclusive. This culture wouldn't name names, divide kids into identity groups, denigrate disfavored groups, or bestow special considerations on favored groups. Its simple but powerful tenets might include: everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves fair treatment. Each individual is valued. We might consider linking such tenets to a positive and forward-looking message of unity and commonality. We are all part of the Mahomet-Seymour Bulldog family. We need everyone to make our school great. We need everyone to make our country great. I understand that these ideas fit neither today's conventional wisdom nor the frenzy of the times, but they may actually offer a better way forward with a better chance of attaining King's dream of a colorblind society than with racializing everything. Thank you very much again for serving on the board. I do appreciate that.
Thanks, Tim.
Kelsey Jacobs.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelsey Jacobs, and I'm going to be a senior this year at Mahomet-Seymour High School. And I just want to start off with something that I actually didn't write down as to address the comments that were just made. The perspective of seeing things as colorblind is just another way for us as white people to ignore these struggles that people of color go through. And to ignore systemic racism is just proving once again that it's because we benefit off of it and not because we have to experience the uglier side of it. So back to what I wrote. I'm going to be talking about a few examples that I witnessed in our school that prove that racism is an issue at Mahomet-Seymour High School and is not something to be dealt with at home. These actually happened in the same classroom with the same teacher, and I believe this teacher is not a bigot, but perhaps doesn't have the correct training to deal with sensitive issues like this. These occurred in the 2017-2018 school year when I was a freshman. I was in class and there was only one girl of color, a black girl, who was sitting in class with us. And we were sitting up there at the end of class, and suddenly a white boy decides to make her his target and is repeating a racial slur to her face over and over again. The surrounding students were sitting there trying to get him to stop, but he thought it was funny. He and his friends assumed that it was a little joke. And they called her this slur over and over again until there were tears in her eyes. It was very loud, everyone in the room could hear it, and our teacher did nothing. So if you would like to sit here and claim that this is something that should be taught at home, when this is happening in our classrooms, in our schools, when people of color and students of color are being affected, then you're sitting in ignorance. Another thing that happened, which is more of an example of xenophobia, is that two boys, once again in that class, decided it would be a fun idea to draw swastikas on the whiteboard. Let me repeat that for you. Mahomet-Seymour High School students were drawing a symbol of hate used in one of the most well-known genocides on Mahomet-Seymour School property. And I was very upset by this because I have a Jewish father and it's in my bloodline. And I brought it to administration and I was told that they take these matters very seriously. And that was the last I heard of that. They got a talking to and that was about it. So if you don't see that there's something wrong with that, and if you don't see that we need some form of diversity and ethics training for our kids, then I don't understand how to get this through to you, because these are things that I've experienced in those halls, in those classrooms, and I'm not even a student of color. I stand here in all my privilege and all my whiteness telling you that this is an issue and this is a problem, and we need to vote to make sure that we have some form of training. It's hurtful, it's harmful, and it's not the education that we promise these kids. So whether this doesn't fit your agenda or whether you believe that this is a home remedy, I just want to say that you cannot ignore us. Whether we'll be doing more protests or sit-ins or whatever, more petitions that we're going to sign, whatever it takes, we're still going to keep fighting for this. Because too many students have been alienated at Mahomet-Seymour High School, at Mahomet-Seymour Junior High, at any Mahomet-Seymour school. And if you care about these kids, you care about our district, then do something about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
And Nick Taylor.
Evening. Thank you. I had the privilege of growing up in this town and a long-term resident, had a chance to serve on the school board here. Excuse me. My concern this evening was we've had a chance to help this town grow significantly over the years. Helping people move in that enjoy being here. Had a chance to have people that have taken their kids completely through schools and they left when they retired to sit down with their experience here in Palm City, really a good experience. And they were glad they were here. They had a chance to be in Champaign or right in front of schools, but this has always been one of those places that tends to draw people because of what the community is. My concern this evening is we've always had a chance to get people here. They've always heard about County Mahomet. I'm starting to hear about people now wanting to leave Mahomet to go to schools that are more on target with 5-day schools and things that are a little more organized and concerned that way. And so this is the first time since I've been on the real estate side of things, since I've actually had people not wanting to come on because of the disorganization of what appears to be the school situation. So I appreciate the school board's endeavors to make things go as smooth as possible, having been there and realized there's always some disruptive situations and alternatives to certain things. But we encourage you. Mahomet has always been one of the schools, districts, and areas that really pull together as Bulldogs and as Mahomet people that love to be there. So I encourage us to get together and put things together and work support to continue to encourage people to make this town continue to grow. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Don, do you think we can WebEx?
Yeah. Jed Taylor.
I'm sorry?
Jed Taylor.
Jed Taylor.
Yes. Okay, ready now? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Great. Thanks for letting me speak. And I'm going to talk a little, I wanted to address I wasn't expecting everybody to be talking about the anti-racism, and that's probably much more important what I'm going to talk about. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the proposal to drop the class rank and grading system. And first of all, I just appreciate all the effort all of you are putting into it, and to the school board, and especially Superintendent Hall and Principal Benedict as well. And I know many agree on the changes to our grading system or need to be made, but the question is really around timing and trying to slip it in less than 36 hours before the school year begins. And it's just really about the right time to do that without adequate discussion. And so I'd like to just make 4 quick points about that, why I believe it's not the right time for that. First is, I don't believe this is an urgent thing that needs to be done immediately. The changes are really not COVID related, as the proposal says. We have a daughter that graduated in the class of 2018, and I have two kids that are in high school right now. These are discussions that were going on clear back then as well. She came back from college last summer, and she saw a couple of her teachers over at the high school, and she went and talked to them, and she came back after talking with them, and she said, "Dad, you'll never believe it. I talked to the teachers, and they're actually thinking about dropping class rank." This was a year ago. And so to say now that that it's urgent that we do it 36 hours before the school year starts this year is just not accurate. Point 2, rising seniors and rising juniors were given a set of rules to play by. Many set goals and made critical scheduling decisions. And for our seniors, they're going into this senior year, and 36 hours away from that start of the senior year, you're thinking about moving the goalposts, changing the rules, pulling the rug from underneath them. What message are you sending to those kids? Are we sending the message to them that play by the rules, set your goals, work hard, and then life hard, and we're going to change the rules, you're going to get kicked in the shin, so prepare for life? I hope that's not the message we're trying to send them. Point 3, are we sure we're even fixing the right problem? The proposal and the accompanying editorial in the Mahomet Daily today gives anecdotal stories of anonymous kids that are being hurt by the status quo. When we cherry pick stories that are one-sided, used to rush through a position, looks bad, okay? Because those stories are cherry picked. I have different issues, okay? We had different issues with the grading system when our daughter went to college. to the point where he applied to colleges out west. 3 universities, what we applied to, looked at our report card and said, this is strange how it is. And our daughter was in the top 10%. And the way our report cards worked cost us a scholarship. Instead of a 4-year scholarship, she got a 2-year scholarship. Cost us tens of thousands of dollars. The university that she got into said no other university does it this way. And I won't go into details for lack of time right now, to the point where I came back and talked to the principal, and he said he'd be happy to sign a document and so forth and explain to us. My point in saying that is that there are other issues as well that should be addressed when we fix this. My problem isn't that we shouldn't fix things, it's that we need to make sure we fix the right thing. And I'm not convinced that rushing this through 36 hours before the school year starts is the way to do it. So are you convinced that we're fixing the right things? How many parents and students have you talked to make sure that you're not that you're fixing the right problem? Because I know you haven't talked to us, you haven't talked to our family, you haven't talked to our kids, and several friends we talked to haven't been talked to as well. Finally, the final issue is I know the proposal says that everyone agrees to this. Okay?
1 minute.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I look at and I see that Principal Benedict has put together a review, and he proposes that we start it in 2025. And I know that Superintendent Hall, that her opinion is that you vote no on this. So I would look at this and say the 2 people that probably know our kids the best have looked at this proposal, and they don't agree that we rush this through and start and change this 36 hours before school starts. So I ask you to consider those reasons tonight when you vote. I'm not opposed to changing the system, just respect the kids that have played by the rules and do it the right way at the right time. And don't be swayed by cherry-picked anecdotal stories that are used to bolster the opinion of that proposal. That's what I have. And again, thank you to all of you that put time into this, and especially Superintendent Hall and the principal. We really appreciate it. So that's my time. I yield in 5 seconds.
Michael Taylor.
And we have Michael Taylor on WebEx.
Hi, I'm Mike Taylor, an incoming senior at MSHS, and I'm speaking today to address the proposal by the board to eliminate class rank for the class of 2021 and beyond. I was surprised to hear that the board is considering changing rules that the class of 2021 has been playing by for the past 3 years, 2 days before the school year begins. I am opposed to this change for several reasons. Many of my fellow seniors and I have set personal goals and made crucial scheduling decisions over the past 3 years based on the set of rules that we were given. At the end of the year, there are awards based upon the rankings, and the colleges we apply to also look at these rankings. Many of us have worked hard, and it is a source of great pride. It does not seem equitable or fair to take this away from us at the last minute without any discussion with students or parents. I talked to several friends, and none of them were aware of this change. How many students and parents did you discuss this new proposal with? The justification for the proposal is that the timing is based on the COVID pandemic. Yet the majority of the arguments presented have nothing to do with the pandemic. Such a drastic change should be discussed and explored. The pandemic should not be used to quickly force a change in 2 days before the school year is set to begin. Finally, the 2 people that know us students best, Principal Benedict and Superintendent Hall, appear to disagree with this proposal. Principal Benedict proposed a plan that starts with the class of 2025, and Superintendent Hall recommended that the board vote against this proposal. I believe that this should be enough for you to vote against it. Please consider these reasons and vote against the proposal to eliminate class rank for the class of 2021. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Mark. Don, do we have anyone else on WebEx?
Michelle Matthews.
Michelle Matthews.
Hi, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to start off by commenting on the school board from 2 weeks ago. Overt acts of racism are certainly hateful and would easily be considered evil. However, most racism presents more covertly than systemic racism and implicit bias primarily operate just below the surface, completely undetectable in some situations and painfully obvious in others. These are more subtle forms of racism that can more easily be ignored by those board members who solely want to focus on family values and ideals. The majority of board members felt insulted by the words used in the anti-racism resolution. Implicit bias, systemic racism, power, and privilege. You can be offended, but that doesn't mean that these words aren't applicable. Love your neighbor as yourself was the proposed solution to address racism in the Mahomet-Seymour School District. This is woefully inadequate. Systems we have today were created by white people in power to benefit white people. Unless the white people in positions of power, in this situation, it's you, the school board, do something concrete to address the built-in inequities, there can be no systemic changes. Mahomet-Seymour is one of the only communities in central Illinois refusing to acknowledge and address issues like systemic racism. It is a community that has recently seen its police department, village administration, and now school system all turning a privileged blind eye to the realities of and inequities caused by racism and discrimination. By refusing to acknowledge the problems, you are by default fighting against social justice and equity. This is intentional and the message is loud and clear. With that being said, I strongly believe that teaching accurate and complete U.S. history, addressing issues related to racism and bias, and dispelling misbeliefs about stereotypes is the duty of the educational system. For those who believe that love thy neighbor is enough and that racism should only be addressed in the home, we have plenty of examples of where both home and school co-teach required curriculum. For example, schools teach driver's education. We don't rely solely on parents to teach the rules of the road. Our schools provide both classroom and behind-the-wheel education in addition to what the parents are teaching their children at home. What if the parents don't drive? What if they have dozens of citations for unsafe driving? Is the home the only place we want our kids to, and the future drivers, to learn how to drive? Schools teach health and sex education in both junior high and high school. The required courses talk to students about issues like physical and sexual development, the health risks of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, in addition to basic health information. We don't rely solely on parents to teach sex education at home. It is a joint effort by both institutions, and each home and school contribute different content related to that education. Racism affects people everywhere in every possible institution. Why shouldn't it be addressed from every possible avenue, including our schools, in addition to our homes? We may not want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable, but we cannot say that our educators and public education system are not responsible for providing curriculum that addresses the historical and systemic racism. Thank you. That is still present today. Maybe if more of us had been exposed to the sad historical realities that Black people experienced, the world would be a more empathetic place and there would not be so much hate. You have the ability to make a difference. You just need to find the desire to. Racism has now been declared a public health crisis at the local and state levels throughout the country. Primary schools, secondary schools, and institutions of higher education across the country are changing their curriculum to reflect our country's actual history. When will our school board get on board? And with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, Michelle. Don, do you have anyone else on WebEx?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Do we have any written comments that have been submitted?
I do have 7.
Okay.
This one is from Andrew Singer. Dear Mahomet School Board, I am a parent of a Mahomet-Seymour High School student and student athlete and have been an engineering professor at the University of Illinois for over 20 years. I have also been a member of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Educational Council and have been interviewing high school students applying to MIT, arguably the nation's most selective engineering admission program, for over 30 years. I am currently the regional coordinator for the MIT Educational Council for all of Central Illinois, coordinating interviews for applicants to MIT in this region. I have observed applicants to this elite program for a long time. When I read that MSHS was considering eliminating class rank effective immediately for students currently at all ranks, freshmen through seniors, I had to speak up. I believe this to be a bad decision for the following reasons. First, the current juniors and seniors, it is manifestly unfair and unreasonable to change the rules of the game this late in their academic process. Rising seniors have selected all of their courses, made decisions, sacrifices, and plans based on the current GPA and ranking system. Juniors have done so for more than three-fourths of theirs. What lesson do we teach our students when we ask them to set goals, prepare for them, work hard, and then, just before they have their hard-earned class rank sent to the college of their choice, we change the rules? Second, for students planning to apply to the most selective programs in the country, including engineering at the University of Illinois and MIT, this decision would remove one of the proudest academic accomplishments a student can report. Third, the argument that this program does no harm is simply not true. This year's top-ranked students from MSHS could apply to the college of their choice and proudly report their rank in their application. The proposed change would irrevocably harm them by taking away that option. While I would favor making class rank reporting optional, it is simply untrue to claim that this change would do no harm to students. Elite programs look for students who have challenged themselves, taking the most rigorous courses their high school has to offer. The current GPA and ranking system serves as a guide for students seeking to demonstrate this passion. Fourth, Superintendent Hall has opposed this plan. Principal Benedict has proposed an alternative, gradual change to the elimination of class rank, where entering freshmen would know and understand the expectations and opportunities for them to plan their high school educational experience. The leaders of this school, with extensive experience in high school education, oppose this plan to immediately and retroactively change the grading system of our students. Finally, a claim was made in the proposal that there are college programs, for example, at the University of Illinois, that do not admit students who have a class rank not in the top 10%. As an administrator in the College of Engineering, this statement is simply untrue. There are no such programs at the University of Illinois. All admissions at the U of I are holistic. There is no one determining or gating factor for admission into any university program. There are certain honors at Illinois that are bestowed on students deemed to be among the top 10% of admitted students, but this has nothing to do with their high school class rank. In summary, changing the rules of the game this late in the process is simply unfair to our hardworking students. The current system helps our students challenge themselves and demonstrate their academic passion along their pursuit of admission to a top college program. The current proposal is not only unfair and based in part on misinformation about the University of Illinois, but it also has been sprung upon the community with almost no warning, without the opportunity for community discussion and debate. Superintendent Hall opposes this plan. Principal Benedict has offered an alternative that could transition to such a program. With more than 30 years of experience interviewing students for admission to elite university programs, I believe this program would irrevocably harm the pride of our community, our most accomplished graduating high school students. Respectfully, Andrew Singer.
Thanks, Mr. Singer.
This one is from Todd and Jacqueline Patrick. Dear Mahomet School Board, we want to begin by thanking each of you for your service to the Mahomet-Seymour schools and community. We are writing regarding the August 3rd school board meeting. During that meeting, we were troubled to hear community members' experiences with racism within the school system. When concerned parents address the board and community with examples of what their children have experienced in Mahomet-Seymour schools, those concerns deserve to be truly listened to and addressed in as timely of a manner as possible. The formation of an inclusion and social justice committee would allow parents a forum in which to bring issues of concern forward and explore ways to solve these issues within the district. We urge its formation. Thank you, Todd and Jacqueline Patrick.
Thanks, Todd and Jacqueline.
This is from the Mahomet-Seymour Equity Alliance. Members of the Mahomet-Seymour School Board and Superintendent Lindsay Hall. On behalf of the Mahomet-Seymour Equity Alliance, a group of Mahomet citizens committed to improving diversity, equity, and inclusion within our community, we would like to sincerely thank Dr. Hall for sharing the steps that our district has taken towards creating a safe and inclusive community for all our children. We appreciate the time and resources you have allowed for these actions to happen and realize the risk you took by taking these steps without the full support of your community and board. In an effort to further these steps and to ensure a comprehensive and lasting approach to working towards an anti-racism climate in Mahomet schools, we are requesting that the board adopt the proposal for establishing a board-level diversity committee made at the previous board meeting by school board member Megan Hennessy. This committee should be regularly updated and given full access to the district's efforts toward furthering diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools. This committee should include all stakeholders and report progress on district efforts regularly to the school board and community. We also feel that it is essential for the district to release a belief/values statement around race, equity, and inclusion. This is a key element to unifying our district's beliefs and efforts. Again, we truly appreciate the steps the district has taken in the last 6 months towards establishing a framework for addressing inclusive practices in our school. Making real change in our community will take a village, and we hope to partner with both the school board and district staff to fully integrate this change for our children. We look forward to working toward this future with you. And it's signed Jennifer Trimble, Susan Jackson, Dee Chapman, Maura Williams, Rachel Smith-Bolton, Lisa Cosamini, Maggie Kinnaman, Michelle Matthews, Diana Onken, Mindy Spencer, Emily Croner, Sarah Canary, Aaron Canary, Thomas Goodell, Ann Ohms, Corinne Carlson, Mary Dugan, and LaShonda Hall.
Thank you for sharing that from the Alliance.
This is from a student, Erin Rath. Erin says, I feel like in-person students are getting a higher priority than online students because 1, they are able to immediately interact with teachers. 2, they are able to establish relationships with teachers and other students. And 3, I still have no idea about what my online learning details are, whereas the in-person students have more details about their learning. Since I still have no details for my online learning, am I expected to use multiple streaming softwares? When are my teachers going to tell me what to prepare for during this school year? School starts in less than 48 hours and I'm still left in the dark. All of these points make me feel like I am not a priority to the school district and that my academic, social, and emotional learning are not as important as the students attending in person. What am I supposed to do if I email a teacher about questions and they don't respond like some did in the spring? I understand that I can email my teachers with questions or that I can schedule a virtual office hour appointment, but that means I have to wait for answers, which will affect my studying and turning my homework in on time. To me, this is not okay because I take my academics very seriously. The last day of in-person instruction was March 12th. The school district didn't come up with a plan until July 20th, when it should have started to make a plan well before then. I want to have faith that the school year will be okay, but right now I don't feel that way. A free and public education is supposed to be equal for all students, and I feel like online students are not being treated equally, and that includes me because I'm an online learner. Sincerely, Erin Rath. He's an 8th grader at Mahomet-Seymour Junior High.
Thanks, Aaron.
This one is from Corinne Moberly. She writes, we are new to the district. I have 2 daughters in Mahomet-Seymour schools, one in junior high and one in high school. I wanted to share my support for the school board creating a committee to address diversity, inclusion, and equity issues in our school district. I'm sure our school board administrators and teachers want our school district to be a welcoming place for all students. And yet the experiences that students past and current have shared with this school board and at marches over the summer demonstrate that we simply aren't a welcoming community, particularly for students of color. The board committee focusing on equity and inclusion could begin to address these issues. Together with participation from teachers and community members, the board community could help more students feel comfortable and welcome, which will in turn create a better learning environment for all our students. This one is from Rachel Smith Bolton. Dear members of the Mahomet-Seymour School Board, I am sending in this comment because some members of the board have given the strong impression that they consider the current request for ensuring equity in education to be coming from only a small number of parents constituting a special interest group. This belief couldn't be further from the truth. I've hesitated to speak out because we are a white family that has had good experiences overall with the district. However, inequity in education, both at the level of how students of color are treated and at the level of our curriculum, hurts all of our children. My son started hearing the N-word frequently used in the halls of the junior high in 6th grade. The board can claim this prevalence of racial slurs comes from parents not teaching proper behavior at home, but when such assaults bear no consequences in our schools, it is clear that there is a systemic problem perpetuated by the district. We know that such a hostile environment negatively impacts students' academic achievement. My friend's children have repeatedly heard the N-word used by several teachers in the classroom, creating an uncomfortable classroom in which the grades of Black students suffered. These individual instances may be considered individual choices, but when the administration backs the teacher's right to use racial slurs, it becomes systemic racism. One of my son's friends was riding the bus one day when the students on the bus erupted into a chant of "clap if you're white," and cheered and clapped, celebrating being white, while my son's friend had to sit there alone, silently absorbing the message that he is less because he is not white. Is this example just 50 students not being taught proper behavior at home? At what point do we acknowledge a systemic problem? At what point does the district publicly say that such behavior will not be tolerated? I attend church in Champaign, and so I have many friends who are parents in Urbana, Champaign, and beyond. They dread competitions against Mahomet teams because of the racial slurs and racialized taunts that come from the spectators. Continuing to ignore or downplay these issues does not hide them from the broader community. Instead, willfully maintaining this blind spot is leading to increasing contempt from those outside of our town. These stories all deal with overt acts of racism, but the small things, the subtle biases, also profoundly impact student learning and achievement. Many schools see higher rates of discipline for students of color, despite similar rates of misbehavior compared to white students. Many schools place students of color into lower performing academic tracks despite equal aptitude. I don't think we have enough students of color in Mahomet to look at the numbers and see if there are statistical differences in how they are treated. That paucity of Black and brown students alone should raise a red flag. You've probably heard these stories before. None of them are unique to my family. I'm telling them again so that you realize the deep concern and request for action is not just coming from the few families in our district of Black and brown students, but is shared by many of the white families in the district. My family is adding its voice to the chorus, asking the district to make a public statement that it is committed to equity and inclusion of all students. 2, take steps to ensure that our schools are welcoming, inclusive, and supportive for all students. And 3, evaluate our curriculum to ensure that the history, literature, arts, and sciences that our students learn are comprehensive. Thank you for listening. Rachel Smith Bolton, parent of 6th and 8th grade students.
Thank you, Rachel.
And this one is from Martin McFarland. He writes, today the University of North Carolina announced they are canceling their hybrid model of teaching and going entirely online after just 1 week of in-person classes that resulted in 14% of tested students getting positive results for COVID-19. Yesterday, CUPHD announced that 33% of the new Champaign County cases that day were in children aged 10 or younger. Over the past few weeks, major local school districts have recognized the inherent danger in sending students back to school. Champaign, Urbana, Decatur, and Chicago have all announced no in-person classes for fall to not only protect our children, but also protect the teachers who have no choice but to be placed in an unsafe environment if in-person learning is required to take place. I urge the school district to reconsider their current plan. It's not too late. Please don't let Mahomet-Seymour be the school district that ignored all warnings and pressed ahead with in-person learning due to a mistaken belief it can't happen here. Students will get sick, teachers will get sick, and it can be avoided by accepting remote learning for the fall semester. Sincerely, Martin McFarland, parent of 3 children in the Mahomet School District. Thank you, Martin.
Okay. Thank you for everyone in the public who made comments to us tonight. We appreciate those. I'll take all the remarks under advisement. At this time, it is time for communication from board members. So let's start with Ms. Hennessy.
I'd just like to ask a question. Some of the speakers mentioned a meeting or alluded to a meeting. Was there a meeting that took place that the outcome was those rules that you read earlier tonight?
There was not a meeting that directly there's been meetings with folks in the public who had concerns. The document tonight was in progress prior to and subsequent to that, and was not a product of any one meeting.
Who was in attendance at the meetings, please?
I'm sorry?
She asked who was in attendance.
Which board members and or administrators were in attendance?
I don't know that that's relevant. We meet with parents all the time.
And I have in my notebook anytime anybody's ever emailed me or called me or texted me. I don't have social media, so regardless of what was said earlier, I don't have anything like that. But what are you asking for?
And is there a reason, Max, that you came tonight with these new rules? And basically, when we left the board agreements that you mentioned at the beginning, we left that in your hands to come back with a list of all of the things that we agreed upon, all of the board members, but we've never had that list come back to us. Is there a reason that we didn't do what we agreed to on that list and we came with a different list tonight?
I don't really want to debate that tonight. We've been down that road. We made no progress on it. There was not much agreement, and that's what got us to where we were tonight.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm going to say is I'm pretty disappointed that it's presented as if the board has a problem when it seems clear that there are meetings going on that don't involve all board members, and then information comes out that a few people have decided will be how we run meetings. If you would like to run meetings, my suggestion is that we use Robert's rules in their entirety, not a list of rules that are one off. So if we want to do something fair, I suggest we adopt Robert's rules as the guideline. I thought we had that earlier. We had our attorneys, I believe, tell us that we just use those as guidelines when we came across rules that we didn't like. A little bit frustrated that it seems tonight I'm hearing that there are backdoor meetings going on and rules coming out of that, and that a few board members feel like it's their place to set the tone and set the guidelines. It's pretty clear in the rules of board members that we're supposed to be equal. And it sure doesn't feel like that's the way that this is being rolled out.
Megan, all the time it comes up in our meetings for the last 15 months that I meet with people and it comes out, you, Colleen, and Ken all say that as long as there's two people, you can do that. And most of my time, it's people saying, hey, Lori, I would like to meet with you. So that, remember, when you set a standard that it's fair to go both ways. I mean, and you speak out and you say, I want to know. And that is why Lori Larson asked, I want to know what people think, because I have everybody come in and say, this is what my people say. Well, I want to know who the people are, because if I wasn't there, I don't know who they are, you know? And so constantly that comes from policies that get thrown at us about class rank and things with bathroom privileges, you know? So we have to be transparent in that sense. So that's aggravating.
This is not a discussion time on that. So, anything else? No. Ken?
Can you hear me okay?
I can. We can.
Thanks. I want to start out by thanking all of our hardworking administrators, staff, and teachers. As any parent in the district can tell you, there's been a flurry of communication coming from Dr. Hall, principals, teachers, and more. I know all our staff are going the extra mile to manage the uncertainty that every school district is facing. And I just want to say that I clearly see you, and I'm truly grateful. Next, I'd like to make it clear that I do not support cutting off constituents when they take the time and work up the courage to publicly speak to us. Finally, I've heard a lot of public discussion about the efficiency and length of the board meetings. While I do agree that there is room for improvement, we should make sure that we look to ideas that do not stifle the participation of board members. Each member of the board needs to remember that in our oath of office, which we publicly swore to fulfill, it states, I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinions of my fellow board members. I decided to go and review the last two public meetings to see how we spend our time. At our last regular board meeting on July 20th, the meeting lasted 5 hours, with 2.5 of those hours being spent on the board discussing and deciding board business. On August 3rd, we had a study session, and it lasted 3.5 hours, with 1 hour and 50 minutes spent on board business. I personally don't have a problem with meetings this long. We are the largest employer in our community with an annual budget of $40 million that serves 3,000 students. A 5-hour board meeting once or twice a month seems pretty reasonable to me. I'd like to ask those of you watching our meetings to consider something. Imagine on July 20th that the board met, spent 15 minutes discussing a single reopening plan. Let's say it was a plan you did not like, and then unanimously voted it through. Board was doing then. I'm guessing that you would be pretty upset that there wasn't more discussion and more options. Thank you. That's my report.
Lori?
No.
Jeremy?
I too want to thank our teachers and administrators and staff for all the work that they're putting in. I mean, it's just countless hours and so many details to take care of. And I'm sure, well, it's appreciated. There's going to be some bumps in the road, and I hope everybody has some patience and some grace along the way to accept that it's not going to be done perfectly, but we're going to do the best that we can.
Merle?
I certainly echo the sentiments for the staff and teachers and so forth as well, but I particularly want to thank everybody who came and talked and wrote letters and engages. Take it certainly all to heart. There are times we could disagree on specifics, but we cannot disagree, and I do not want to, on the right to be in front of us and share these things. So I thank all of you for doing that.
Thank you very much. Colleen?
I would also like to echo thanks for our administrators and our teachers and all of the staff that's working hard to get school ready for this upcoming year, which is challenging to say the least. In addition, I would like to say that I also want to echo something Megan said, that I support the idea of us having control in our meetings by running the meetings through full Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, like our policy alludes to. And so I would like if we could actually put that on an agenda so that we could discuss using Robert's Rules as our meeting guidelines. Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen.
I'll just add tonight that during my time here, we heard lots of public comment tonight on lots of topics. We appreciate it. I do want to comment on the folks that spoke on equity, inclusion, and social justice and diversity. Last meeting, it was recommended that we take kind of a top-down approach and do a board-level committee. And it was also asked that we sign off on a resolution that had been provided to us. We chose not to do those things. And I think there's a mistaken idea in some people's minds that means we're doing nothing or that we don't agree there's an issue. We do want our schools to be welcoming and inclusive. We do want to get better at these issues. There has been a plan in place for several months by Dr. Romo and Dr. Hall. It is not born out of the current world situation or current world events. It was in place before then. And it was in place before then because we felt a need that we needed to get better in those areas. It involves consulting with University of Illinois staff that are experts in this field. It involves working with our staff, and instead of a top-down board level approach, it is working with our staff and our folks and working and so kind of from the staff up to get buy-in, to get support, and to get the training at the staff level they need. Let's talk about a committee, and if we didn't do the board level committee, there will be a committee. That's part of this plan. And the U of I will help us through those steps, but we do want to build something that's comprehensive and lasting. So again, there may be a style and approach difference, and I recognize that, but please don't assume that there will not be a committee or that we are doing nothing to address it. That is not accurate. All right, so this time is when we would have the financial update next. We've been going 90 minutes. We're going to take about a 5-minute comfort break, and then we'll come back with the financial update, the superintendent's report, and then get into board business. So 5-minute break.
Kelsey, thank you for coming.
Okay, we're back live on with the live stream and the sound's back up. And board members, are we still on WebEx? Colleen?
I'm here.
Mika? Ken?
I'm here. Thank you.
Did we lose Mika? She's still there. I don't see a square. Oh, there she is.
I'm sorry, I'm here. I was having a comfort break. I'm back.
Okay, thought I lost your square for a minute. You're there and I hear your voice. Okay, very good. Okay, now it's time for financial report with Heather.
Well, good evening. I just wanted to report, I'm sure you guys saw the red flag report, which showed that we were not on track with revenue. I just wanted to explain why. First of all, we got our sales tax early in June instead of July, so we didn't get any sales tax for the month of July, but we did just get it in our August in the other day. We are currently 4% down year to date for sales tax, which is good when we propose a 20% as worst case scenario. The CPRT, which is the corporate replacement taxes, they have been estimated by the state as being down by 17%, which I've already updated the budget to reflect that as well. Basically, this month we will be getting a lot of the money that we have received in July in the past. We just got $2.4 million in property taxes this month. So that will hit August, and we started getting our evidence-based funding this month. They do not actually they do not distribute out any money in July. So you will see the revenue going up in August.
So the county's late with money.
Yeah, the county has kind of, we got them to get the money in that we needed for fiscal year end, but they were just a little bit slower this year getting it in August instead of July. So, and as for expenses, we were a little bit below what was projected for the year as a percentage of the year. So we're doing fine with expenses, just got to catch up our revenue.
Board members, any questions for Heather on the finances?
This is Ken. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Heather, I just wanted, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there was a bit of a dust up last year about the budget and it being available to the public and what form it was. I just want to say thank you for just putting into the board packet the full ISB form, the one that you're going to have to submit.
Yes.
That's a great solution to get it out there to the public. I just want to say thank you for that.
You're welcome. And as I said before, I will continue to update it. We had it done earlier, so it was kind of done person by person. It will be a lot more accurate when I'm able to, once the step is introduced into the system, once I'm able to actually download the salaries as they are. So I will continue to update and update the board as well with its progress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Superintendent report, Dr. Hall.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Max's words on the diversity and equity initiatives that are going on in the district, and just say a few more words about that. I provided a brief update in my superintendent's report. But moving ahead, I want to emphasize that this is a plan that was started 3 years ago, and it might not have started in place of dealing directly with issues of racism and diversity, but it's rooted in a model of addressing social emotional learning. And we've been working on this. We're going into our 4th year with this, and it's not just about addressing racism, but it's about addressing all different aspects of diversity in our schools. Populations in schools are changing everywhere, and Mahomet-Seymour is no exception to that rule. And so without the foundation of social emotional health and cultural competencies and cultural awareness, we're not going to be able to make much progress in addressing issues of diversity and racism and equity And so I just wanted again to provide an update in my superintendent's report. We will be providing the first of staff trainings on September 14th and 21st. And then the town hall meetings that we've been discussing have been scheduled for September 14th, 23rd, and 30th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Those will be at different locations. We would like those. The plan right now is to have those in person and probably try to hold them outside. It is through the participation in those town hall meetings that we hope to form a district-wide committee. And partnering with the folks at the University of Illinois, Dr. Kevin Tan and Dr. Jan Carter-Black, we're following their expertise and their guidance. This work is very important. We want to do it right, and we want to do it with the proper background knowledge and expertise. So out of participation in those town hall meetings, which are going to be open to anybody who wants to participate, that we hope to build that committee by having different voices and different people represented who are at those groups. We've also created a diversity and professional development website and resource for our teachers. We plan to address different areas of the curriculum, not only this year, but throughout the next couple of years. We've already started on that work in the past, and this year is the language arts curriculum that is under review. We're also working on a platform where community members and parents can receive updates on all of the work that is coming. We are not only going to be addressing issues of racism, but also other areas of diversity that we see in our schools. And so this is a comprehensive approach, and so I, again, just echo the sentiment that it's not accurate to say that nothing is being done. There's been an amazing amount of work being done, largely behind the scenes though. And as I've said before, perhaps we need to be more out there and in front of things and more public about it. But there's a lot of really great things that our school district does behind the scenes that are not always out there. So we'll continue to provide updates. I've actually, Dr. Rummel and I have talked, and with the board's blessing, we'd like to put a update from her on the board agenda every month, just as Heather and I also do, and I think that that's be helpful and relevant moving ahead. Not just for this issue, but all curriculum and instruction issues as well. So I also just will close by saying thank you to all the speakers. I do appreciate that it's very difficult to get up and speak, and there were some very eloquent things said tonight. We just always appreciate the feedback and input that our community gives to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Hall?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Thanks. Dr. Hall, did you participate in the meeting on Monday at 4:15 with Max and Lori?
The meeting at Monday at 4:15.
I didn't have a meeting today. I've been at work.
Today?
Last Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us how many people were in that meeting?
4.
Is there any reason why you didn't inform the rest of the board about that meeting and what was discussed?
A constituent contacted us and asked to meet with me and the board president and the board vice president.
Okay, well, after the meeting tonight or tomorrow sometime, would you mind sending us an update and letting us know how that meeting went? And please include who was at the meeting.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Anything else for Dr. Hall? Okay. Item of business number 1, IGA with the Village of Mahomet for development and infrastructure on the East Campus and the sale of the junior high. This is on tonight as a discussion item. There's not going to be any action on this tonight. Dr. Hall, you want to lead us off?
Sure. Well, I also want to recognize that Village President Sean Widener is with us, Village Administrator Patrick Brown, and Village Planner and Kelly Pfeiffer is also here to provide input, answer questions, engage in the discussion. This is only a discussion item. There is no vote tonight. The purpose is to bring these agreements to here for discussion because they have been referenced in some different discussions over the past year, probably most recently as it relates to the extension of the TIF out here on the east end of town. And so again, tonight is a night to ask questions, exchange information, and discuss the two intergovernmental agreements that are in the board packet. So very quickly, one of the intergovernmental agreements actually replaces an older intergovernmental agreement. This is the one entitled Conway Farm Subdivision and Related Matters. The old intergovernmental agreement has roads placed in areas that at one time were thought to be the best place, and as conversations and the development of this building have evolved and the existence of this building has evolved, it became apparent that older intergovernmental agreement needed to be replaced. And so thus we have this new one that calls for a different placement of roads, mainly to the east and south of Middletown Prairie. And then the other intergovernmental agreement is covers the sale of 13 acres and junior high to the village of Mahomet as part of a long-term facilities plan. This has also been discussed in previous meetings. This agreement allows for, again, the sale of 13 acres of the junior high to the village of Mahomet. It is very difficult to sell a school building once it's offline. And if that is the direction that we are headed, we are happy to have an interested buyer down the road in the future. So with that, I will defer to others who want to.
Yeah, I'll add, and I think Mr. Widener's got some background to fill in too. But there has not been really any action specific since we talked about this maybe even a year ago at the joint meeting. What has happened is a lot of filling in of detail and a lot of work in place and needs to be done to bring all this to fruition. It does say sale of the junior high. Frankly, this provides us a buyer for the junior high if that's what we decide we're going to do. We still have to decide if we're going to, and the village has contingencies on there also. But, you know, when we sold Sangamon, that was probably, well, it wasn't probably, as far as school buildings being sold in central Illinois, that is, we did the best with that at $750,000 than anybody has done in recent history as far as selling an offline school building. And so the fact that we're able to have this pre-negotiated in place, if we end up pulling the trigger on a junior high, we're able to have a buyer lined up that's ready and willing, I think is great for the community. And it certainly provides the village with a great option to do some things that they would like to do. So I'm glad we've got that in place, and clearly how that unfolds over time. We've got a lot to work on yet, but at least we don't have to worry about what we would potentially do with the building. And I know, Sean, you want to fill in anything that I've missed?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Nothing really to add other than just first and foremost, thank you for having us here tonight. I think between myself, Patrick Brown, and Kelly Pfeiffer, we should be able to answer any questions you may have. And if you don't, or if I don't have the answer, we certainly can find it for you and look into things.
I went back to our notes from our September joint meeting, and I think it's important to recognize that the amount of work that has brought to this point tonight, the cooperation between our two taxing bodies did not happen overnight. And I would be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to at least thank those who came before us. This cooperation is a great example of that was a call to action back in 2010. And with that, I'll pass it off to Kelly if you have anything to add ahead of the discussion. Again, thank you for having us tonight.
Kelly?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So I'll try to fill in some gaps. I also want to add a little bit of background and perspective based on some of the social media strings, as well as phone calls to me, as I am the village planner. So I'm speaking to you tonight as the village planner. I want to advise you when you approach this decision is to think like landowners and developers on whether you enter into the proposed intergovernmental agreement concerning the East Mahomet campus and the junior high 13-acre park. I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you.
It's going to work here. Okay.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see if we go here. All right, hold on. Is it possible? I'm trying to share my screen. See what's going on. All right, if nothing else, yeah, for whatever reason, Cisco doesn't like my computer. So I'll just have you use your imagination. So this decision is to enable a roadway and utilities to be extended through your property. And those roadway and utilities will be owned and maintained by the Village of Mahomet, and you can use them. The location for this future South Mahomet Road was chosen because it still makes your land appropriately flexible for your various uses and buildings, including a new junior high, if you so choose to build one there, and all of your uses, which tend to be large parking lots as well as large buildings. But it also puts a roadway and infrastructure at a location that increases the value of your land holdings. If you didn't build anything in the future, you would still want to have your land at a higher per acre value than your purchase, and you would want as many buyers for it as possible if you needed to dispose of it. This is what this IGA does. You should think like investors and endeavor to increase the value and development potential of your land if you do not use it, while at the same time making sure you still can use it. The decision isn't whether you build a junior high on the property. You're currently obligated to construct $2.5 million of infrastructure so the remainder of East Mahomet can develop. But the roads and the utilities you would build under the current IGA are not expected to increase the per acre value of your land, nor open the land to multiple types of buyers. The new IGA will do both, if necessary. By approving the IGA and enabling South Mahomet Road to continue through your property, you're increasing the value of land that right now has very little value beyond agricultural use. The south portion of your property is not served by utilities nor any infrastructure. Streets and utilities are assets to landowners and developers, not obligations, unless you put them in the wrong place. So with the approval of the new IGA, you're relinquishing your own costly land obligations in the current IGA to someone else, the village, to build at their own cost, basically using TIF dollars, that you either benefit directly from or you'll reap the financial benefits if you choose to sell the land adjacent to it. The construction of South Mahomet Road and the related utilities also enable you to build from south to north if you so wish. That flexibility could be extremely important to the school district. You do not yet know what you want to site on that land and when. This agreement doesn't lock you into anything and enables you to develop even along the railroad tracks if you so choose first. The second agreement is a very different agreement. It is about 13 acres park and the junior high. It is a sales agreement. In this situation, the village is offering itself as a guaranteed buyer for the new school building and land. The school intends to pursue a referendum to construct a new school. The uncertainty around the value of Sangamon many years ago was detrimental to both the village and the school. So the village endeavored to determine the development potential of the land the school may wish to sell should it vacate and build on the East Campus. We also evaluated the building for indoor recreation. Do not expect Sangamon or the junior high to be repurposed as Sangamon has. 13 acres was appraised and the village evaluated the development potential. It is limited for private land development, despite being central in town. It's a high-cost infill parcel primarily due to drainage and the existing infrastructure around it. Its highest and best use is in the park. The village will pay the park district $225,000 for the park if the village doesn't buy the junior high. Even at no cost, the school is relieved from maintenance costs during the time. Now to the junior high building and the land. Frankly, schools don't typically sell classroom buildings. It says a lot about the strength of Mahomet's economy and community that Sangamon School was sold and repurposed into a high tax generating use. It's actually remarkable. I don't think the public understands how lucky we are. The junior high building and its location is a very different story. That is likely a demo for residential low density rebuild, if not for a recreation center for the village. Low density residential isn't in demand and there's plenty of land less costly to develop residentially. I think when it comes down to it, this isn't a sales agreement per se, it's a partnership that secures the decision for either a new junior high or a rec center will be made by voters with a referendum. But if one fails or doesn't go for a referendum, the other entities protect it. And it also assures that a large building, highly specialized building doesn't succumb to vacancy if the school wants to dispose of it. If you think like landowners, your vote to approve both IGAs is fairly simple. You're locking in a buyer for a fixed price if you need to vacate the junior high. With respect to the Conway Farms area and the Middletown Prairie land, the new IGA improves the value of your land, gives you flexibility in where on the large property you develop or use next, and you're opening up land within 2 years for development in East Mahomet that currently are not serviceable nor very taxable. And that's it. And I'm happy to answer any questions as well on either.
Okay, board members, if you want to share opinions, you can go twice for up to 2 minutes. However, I would anticipate that there'd be questions. So if you want to ask questions, you may go ahead and do that also.
What is the expectation about signing these agreements? When is that going to come up for discussion?
I think our intention at this point is to bring them back next month.
When did we set the price for the junior high that's contained in the IGA?
I'm guessing at least a year ago. When was Sangamon sold?
November of 2017.
So it was shortly after that, as far as the discussions, as far as price goes.
But I can't find record of a vote.
There was no vote. That's just the discussions between the village and the school district.
The the school district needs to vote to set a price for that. So I think we need to have a joint meeting between the village board and the school board to discuss this in more depth. So I would like to propose that that happens before we have any sort of discussion about signing these agreements.
We had a joint meeting. Does anyone else think we need another joint meeting?
We had two though, right? We had the one in September. This is my question. We had one in September that was at the Corn Belt, and then we've had one in this room. When I can't recall when that one was.
We had a meeting. What would we want to accomplish during another joint meeting?
I'd like to have discussions about the fact that the appraisal for some of these things was in 2015 and Mahomet has changed quite a bit since then. So I don't know that our appraisals shouldn't be relooked at. I've never had the opportunity to discuss the selling price for this. The board has never had the opportunity to discuss any of these things.
We had a meeting last fall with just our board after the village meeting, after the joint meeting.
We never had any vote about any of these specific topics.
It's because it's not been called for vote yet.
I believe
that price listed in the document. Where did that price come from?
That price came out of discussions between the village and the school district after 2017.
You said in the last meeting that we don't have projected cost figures yet to do the junior high, and the purpose of tonight is just to kind of put a general framework and have some ideas that can come together. But we have never had any further discussions from that, and I am going to suggest that with something that's this big an impact to the district, we need to have those discussions.
I think those dollar amounts or that statement you just referred to, I could be wrong, but the general framework was around the village of Mahomet and our desire to look at a recreation facility at the junior high sites.
I understand why the village of Mahomet wants this deal. I don't think that this deal is beneficial to the school district. And I think the board has to, as Kelly said, put our developer's hat on and actually look at the details that are being presented in these intergovernmental agreements. How many meetings have we had? This is the first time I've seen this intergovernmental agreement. Have other board members seen these documents prior to this board packet?
No.
The same is
Well,
true for the village board as well.
What, 10 days ago? A week ago?
These documents are a result of the meeting though that we had with the village at Cornbelt and the IGA meeting that we had here and we studied the road and the benefits of it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So those are two meetings where we talked about the preliminary documents coming before right here now. Is that correct? Okay.
When we had that meeting back in September, I remember very clearly being very grateful that we were beginning the conversation. And we talked about that at the meeting, that it was great for this to be a first step of a discussion between the board and the village. And that's the last meeting that we've had about that in the junior high. We had a subsequent board meeting where Sean and Patrick came to talk to us about the TIF district, but we haven't had any further discussion as a board or a joint board about moving forward with the sales of property. And so I think it would be appropriate for us to have another meeting since we haven't had one since September 4th. And this is a big deal. It involves a lot of money and a lot of decisions that need to be made. And we had a very productive meeting last time, and it seems that we should continue that because I'm not sure who is making the decisions on behalf of the board. And so I would like the board to participate in the discussions about the decisions made for the board.
So that's why it's on the agenda for discussion tonight.
Can I just add for a point of clarification, the Village of Mahomet Board of Trustees has the same topic for discussion tomorrow night at our study session. So this is the first time that your board and then our board are seeing the agreement. Just for clarification.
I guess I would just really appreciate our boards being together about that. If we're going to make an agreement, our board and your board, I feel like our board and your board need to talk to each other.
Well, what do you want to discuss? Why don't you discuss it? This is our chance.
Right. It's on the agenda for discussion, and we're discussing that we should be discussing. I would suggest if we've got concerns, let's put them on the table.
Hey, Max, just as a point of reference, do you recall, I vaguely recall, what the appraisal was for Sangamon and what it ultimately sold for?
Sangamon appraised, I think, for 1.3 million, something like that.
1.6.
And it sold for 750. That's what I recall.
So it did not have an appraisal started with 2.
Oh,
I'm trying
you know, I don't
to remember that early first appraisal.
Oh, you're right.
I'm thinking.
You're right. So it was 1.8 or 2.1, depending on which method they used and whatever, yeah.
I think it was, and I believe our lesson on that was
1.3 is where we started with the list price.
that it's exceedingly difficult to actually appraise a building that is of such specific usage. And we saw that in the end.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with doing an appraisal on something like the junior high either, but I wouldn't hold high hopes that any appraiser could actually bring something in that's valuable if there's not somebody close looking for another school.
In the end, it's worth what
Someone's willing to pay. That's what my dad always said.
I think I have a fiduciary responsibility to the district to have that appraisal done, not only for that, but for 13 acres as well. That 225 that's referenced in the IGA, the 50 acres in 2015 was actually appraised at 325. And so I think we need to do our due diligence to go through the exercise of understanding what these properties might be worth 5 years later.
I would suggest we've done a couple of years of due diligence on this.
What if the appraisal comes back in less than what it was 5 years ago?
Then at least we have realistic numbers and we know what we're working with.
So then that means you're okay with us selling you for less?
I don't know how to answer that imaginary question.
Well, I'm just saying, there's no guarantee that it's gonna appraise for what we're selling it for right now. And if it appraises for less, the village may decide that they don't want to pay for the amount, the 750 that they're offering right now. I think we have to take that into consideration.
Real estate trends don't seem to trend that way. But I think as a board member with a fiduciary responsibility, I don't feel like I can make this decision in a void without the necessary information.
But the building's getting older.
But we haven't actually heard a plan to figure out a scenario that would allow us to not need the junior high. There's one I can think of, but it's never been proposed in public or in this board. And I keep hearing about a plan that won't solve our problem. And so I think that discussion needs to happen first too.
We also have to understand what it is that we're looking at in terms of a referendum, because if we're going to go and ask the taxpayers for money, we have to understand what decisions we're making about selling properties. And right now, I'm quite uncomfortable with 13 acres having the potential of just being given away for $0.
Kelly, can you tell us when the South Mahomet Road project is scheduled to begin?
Sure. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
I worry about shifting. Okay. So one of the reasons for you considering tonight this is that our next step is to petition the ICC to get a hearing. The Norfolk Southern will be going with us to get a hearing to consider the at-grade crossing for South Mahomet Road. By the time that we get and we are at the hearing, we need to have secured the right-of-way that would provide the ultimate connectivity. So we are currently engaged with the Property Owners Association for Conway that is endeavoring to target end of September to sign its documents designating the right-of-way of the easement. We have documents out to Vertical Tower Partners, which is the land to the west of your parcel. They are dedicating right-of-way as well. We should have that secured by the end of the month. The last piece, if you will, is the right-of-way from the school for the future location of South Mahomet Road. And we would like that as well by the end of September, so we can attempt to get a hearing before the end of the year and get out for spring bid letting for construction.
Kelly,
What happens if, I'm sorry, go ahead, Max.
Kelly, what's the timetable? Because ultimately we would like the road all the way through to Prairie View Road.
Correct. To fulfill our
how's that going?
Yeah, so we are designing the entire roadway. To fulfill our application and our request from the ICC for the crossing, we have to connect the roadways within 3 years. The only thing that's necessary to connect the roadways is actually South Mahomet Road and the section of Churchill Road at that time. To fulfill our requirements for the ICC's authorization to proceed, we don't actually have to construct all the way to Prairie View. So, however, we are designing for all of that. But what you'll see in the petition and why we can do this now is we're trying to secure all of the lands from the Harvest Edge developers, the church, the Conway POA, Vertical Tower Partners, and then you. And everyone else is lined up. The IGA, again, we'd be moving a road. We need to secure that right of way. And that's why you're seeing this IGA. I'm more equipped to answer questions about this particular IGA, and this one does have time pressures. Pat Brown is also on that may be able to answer more questions when it comes to the junior high and 13 acres. But either way, my point is that the road that we are asking for you guys to approve the IGA, it gives you back right of way that you would not be using. You don't have to build those roads. Instead, you're going to dedicate right of way for South Mahomet Road and Churchill, and you're not even going to have to build the road. And that way we can get you access to the south part of your land by the end of next year. But we can't we can't petition to the ICC to get the crossing until we have secured the right-of-way for South Mahomet Road, Churchill, like it's being proposed.
Kelly, I thought you said that we just have to be able to proceed within 3 years. What is the condition to reach out to ICC? Do we need to have all these agreements in place first, or do we just have to have a reasonable timeline that 3 years we can get this all done?
No, the timeline of the 3 years is construction. The timeline to commit to go to court and get the appropriate thing of the crossing, there's 6 landowners necessary to do this. Since private developers are going to be dedicating land as well, they need to know that the connection will be made. Vertical Tower Partners is a participant in that, dedicating the right-of-way for no cost to the village, because it will be pursued in the next bid year. So, and remember how we have a short order for the TIF, and we want to try to encourage development as quickly as we can. So it gets that the new development on the tax rolls for the board and for other entities. We now need to, in order to get the agreement from the Property Owners Association, Vertical Tower Partners, the church, and Harvest Edge, which is at a critical time before it gets to its next phase, we frankly need to act this year so we can start construction next year.
Okay, and I appreciate the timetable and all that. Ultimately, we want to get through to Prairie View Road. So what, how far away do you think that is?
It would be going with just an amended, the second bid package. It would be the following year. So we need the crossing first, and we'll get all the way through the intersection with Churchill and South Mahomet Road, and then we'll start the construction the following year to get to Prairie View. But we won't construct Churchill to Prairie View until we get a crossing.
Is there a way, Kelly, that you can provide us with maps that have the timetables broken out? I'm having a hard time just in my head understanding where that line is and what the time frame is. So I think it would be helpful if we could have maps that include, and thank you for sending the easements and the public water setbacks, but I only got those at 11:30. So I still probably have questions about that I haven't had a chance to review today. But if you could provide the board with a map that also included the phasing of this, I think that would be helpful.
Yes, Wednesday afternoon, we have a conference call with Hanson Engineers that is doing the design work and helping us coordinate, and I will request some additional exhibits to send to you along with some timelines. I have to say, largely our timelines are based on when we can get our 2 boards to agree to sign the intergovernmental agreement. If we can't sign it, or we do not think that we can sign it by November, then we would have to go back to the drawing board about how quickly we can actually do it. It may defer it for a whole other year. We don't like putting anyone up against the wall, but we did feel like this was discussed with the extension of the TIF and why we needed to. You are seeing 2 intergovernmental agreements. Speaking for myself, the only one that is of critical importance and is frankly the next step in what our 2 boards did jointly decide on multiple occasions and likely within the TIF, was that the intergovernmental agreement for South Mahomet Road does need to be reviewed, looked at, and acted upon rather expeditiously. It is not just in case you build a junior high, and that maybe is the nexus between the 2 that could be confusing. This road, you are not obligated in the IGA for related to South Mahomet Road to put any facilities anywhere on it. You could even sell the land. We haven't pinned you into anything. We're just seeking the right-of-way dedications, and for that, we'll remove the obligations for the construction of Secretariat Country Ridge Drive and the south part of Churchill Road. That's $2.5 million. It doesn't really get you much, but we need that right-of-way as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. I thought in our discussions about the TIF that part of the agreement that we got from the village when we agreed to give the TIF money over was that those obligations for those roads were being removed at that time. Is that not correct?
They are essentially, but you're still under the first intergovernmental agreement right now. That's why this is the natural next step to relieve you of those, is that we need a new intergovernmental agreement to officially relieve you of those obligations.
Yeah,
I thought Sean sent an
This is Patrick. We had said that at that TIF meeting, that what we're talking about tonight with this intergovernmental agreement, this is the next step. That was discussed at that TIF meeting.
Are you suggesting if we don't sign this new intergovernmental agreement, the village is going to hold us to
well, until you until you sign it, you're obligated for those $2.5 million of roads. I mean, this was
Sean sent an email that said that part of our agreement for releasing that TIF money was that obligation was removed.
No, the obligation was removed once we do a new intergovernmental agreement, and that's what's here tonight for the discussion.
Yeah, we essentially said at that meeting, TIF funds, extension of TIF funds or TIF district, and we wrap up the existing IGA and enter into a new one. The new one is what we're talking about tonight.
Sean, are the two agreements, are they bound together? Like, do we need to pass both of them or neither of them?
They're not bound together, in my opinion, no.
They're not bound together.
It seems as though as a board, we have discussed more the road agreement than the 13 acres junior high agreement. Would you agree to that?
Is that a question for us, Colleen, or?
I think the board, I mean, I feel as though our board has discussed the road, but we haven't really talked about the 13 acres in the junior high as much as we've talked about the road. Seems to me like these need to be separated out completely and talked about separately. I mean, I agree. We've talked about this road a lot more.
I agree with that, Colleen.
What questions do you have about the junior high agreement?
I mean, my primary question about the junior high is, what is the plan for the district to not need the junior high? I mean, I understand the whole plan, the rec center and the everything. As a person with a fiduciary responsibility to the district, I'm trying to figure out what plan we have as a district that makes it reasonable that we would sell the junior high. We have 4 buildings that are too small. So, and the junior high would be space. So I'm all for us figuring out how to do it. I'm just saying we have to have that discussion and figure it out. Because right now I've never heard of any discussion, topic, suggestion by any member of the board or any member of the administration that puts us in a position where we don't need that junior high. Now, like I said a few minutes ago, I can think of one, but I've never heard it brought up in the board meeting.
The junior high plan needs public involvement. We've talked about this before. That's why we talked about community engagement, which I am not calling strategic planning, because we built community engagement. We beat that to death. And there's a hesitancy as a group for us to move forward on that. And that's where that's at. We can't make a final decision, even with this, even if we were to vote this in place tonight, which we're not going to because I'm not here for a vote. We don't pull the trigger to sell the junior high until we've got a plan that we're all satisfied with to take it offline. And that involves a lot of work by the community. But part of that too is also assuring the community we've got a plan to take the junior high offline, and there's certainty as to what could happen. 13 acres, frankly, the village uses more than we do. We use it very little. They use it a lot. We own it. They would like to develop that into a nicer rec area than it is. They can't do that while we still own it. All we're doing there is flipping ownership. They will own it. We will still have access to it. But they'll be able to develop and improve that property. And it just makes sense, based on the use of that property, for them to be the owners.
I do understand why.
Agreement. Sorry, Clayton, go ahead.
I do understand why the village wants the property. What I'm concerned about is that this agreement says that we're going to just give them the property. And then if we can't figure out how to make 4 buildings bigger, then they keep it and we give it to them for nothing. That doesn't seem.
That's not what the agreement says. The agreement says it's included with the price of the junior high. If they don't buy the junior high, they end up paying $225,000.
That is not what the agreement says.
That is not what it says.
The agreement says if they back out of the deal, they have to pay $225,000. It says if we can need the junior high and we can't afford in terms of space to get rid of it, then they keep 13 acres for free. That's what the agreement said.
And in the interim, it also says that we are required to pay maintenance until the point where we either decide to sell or not. And we have to cover carry $1 million worth of liability insurance.
That's part of our current agreement with that.
It appears it's putting the cart before the horse to make a plan to sell the junior high before we've even discussed a plan. Like, I hear it talked about a lot in the community that we're going to sell the junior high, we're going to build a new junior high. But even if that plan was to come into fruition and we were to build a new junior high, we still have space issues. So even the plan that I've heard to build a new junior high doesn't relieve us of that problem. And so I think as a board, we need to start talking about other options. In order to solve our space problems, after our space problems are solved, then we can talk about selling our buildings. But this seems to be the opposite way that we should be proceeding.
Any other thoughts or comments by board members? Well, we went the half hour we've allotted for this. We'll allow 2 more minutes at this point, and we'll move on to other business. Anybody have any other comments?
So this is Ken. I suggest we keep working on and considering the South Mahomet Road IGA. I suggest we table the junior high one probably until the end of the school year, honestly, just because we've got enough on our plate as it is. And as I think everyone here has said, it's not a pressing matter. That's my opinion.
I like that idea.
We keep taking anything that has to do with the future of the district and kicking it down the road. And I understand there's probably some folks that would like to kick it down the road past the next election. I mean, let's just be honest here.
I'm going to be honest, Max. It doesn't have anything to do with the election. It has to do with the fact that we can't sell a building when we need the space. Lincoln Trail is busting at the seams. There are no places for any more class.
Provisions to have an option with the building should have come to that point.
And we need to relook at the language of that because the 13 acres piece of that document is not in the best interest of the district right now. We have to look at that language.
Max, I think you said yourself tonight, and I agree with you, that the next step is to do the community engagement portion as we develop plans to replace the junior high or do some sort of construction project. This strikes me as really out of the correct order to do this. I mean, we're jumping to selling the property or jumping to making an agreement to sell the property. Let's focus on trying to get the community engagement part then. If that's truly the next step, as you suggest, let's focus on that.
Part of this is that the village wants a little bit of certainty and a plan for the rec program. And if we just avoid this continually, then they're gonna go make other plans for the rec center, and we won't have that available as an option.
So I understand, and I really support the Parks and Rec department in the village. But it doesn't help them any for us to say, yes, we're going to sell it to you, when we can't tell them when we're going to sell that to them.
The community expects us to work together a little bit here, and this is the way we can do it.
I'm fine separating the two issues and looking at this language a little closer. We need to do that.
Separating two issues and the IGA and then the junior high.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
The two items. And they're separate right now. We're discussing them together, but they're separate items.
Max, can I add a comment on some of the discussion about 13 acres?
Yeah.
So the whole idea of 13 acres in the junior high being coupled together, again, we're going back from, 2011, 2012 discussions. It's been a long time that we've been talking about a rec center for the village and our residents. The idea of the prices really came about was to include it into the junior high costs, right? So the intergovernmental agreement is basically trying to say, hey, it's part of the deal, and if you back out, then we need to know this, or trying to have some kind of trigger to accomplish that. I guess what I'm hearing tonight is if there's concerns with the price, regardless of what happens to the junior high, the Village of Mahomet is certainly involved and interested in 13 Acres Park with that payment. If it's $225,000, that's what we agreed upon, at least in premise, when we started the discussions, again, 7-8 years ago, with the Mark proceeding through the process, and then previous administrations talking about, dollar amounts. The point being, I guess, is the village is interested in that amount, $225,000. We could talk about terms of payment and all that good stuff. And if we end up buying the junior high, fine, say it's $750,000 minus $225,000. It's just a different way of doing the agreement, but it's the same thing. It's taking the $225,000 and giving credit to the purchase. So I guess I just want to make sure that everybody understands that from a rec department perspective, certainly we want both properties to be in the vision plans and everything we're moving forward on. But at a minimum, let's not worry about the $225,000 and how that's being paid. I don't want the legal folks came up with the wordage there. I just want to make sure we understand that price has always been included in the junior high price. So if that's the concern, I want to just be on the record that we are still interested in 13 acres, and let's figure it out for the community, because we cannot make improvements to 13 acres for a property we don't own. And that's the biggest thing. We've had examples of that in the past with the Taylor Fields, and that's a good example of what Taylor Fields looked like for a long time before finally we own it and we can invest in it. So that's kind of the perspective from the rec center. But certainly from our community standpoint, again, we've been talking about this since 2011. We want some kind of certainty in the future to make plans towards. This is kind of the focus we've had for a number of years now. If the school district, for whatever reason, wants to kick this can in the road, I mean, I think it's unfair to all the taxing or the taxpayers of Mahomet to continue to wait for at least the vision. Again, the IGA puts, I guess, exit clauses or exit strategies for both taxing bodies, not just the village. So again, I want us to work cooperatively. I mean, I think that's what everybody expects. And certainly I would agree with, I think the consensus tonight so far is separating the two issues, because there really are two separate things. And if you want to have more discussion about junior high, which I think is more on your side than ours, certainly we can entertain that.
John, for the commentary, it's not, I think, that anyone is saying they don't want you to build a rec center and have a plan. I think my perspective is this intergovernmental agreement makes it seem like you can count on the junior high, but until we solve the space issue, it can't come to fruition. And so it seems as though it's actually worse for us to enter into an agreement with you that makes you not have another alternative and think about this is the plan. And then we go 6 years down the road and we have 3 buildings where we have to use the tents they bought because there's no space in the building. And then we say we can't possibly sell a building when we don't have a place for kids to go. So I think addressing the discussion about solving 4 building space issues is actually a discussion to move towards your rec center. Not against. It's not kicking the can down the road. It's actually moving in a positive direction where we actually solve problems.
Hey, Max, is it appropriate to add the discussion of the sale of property to closed session?
Yes.
Can we do that tonight?
We can.
Can we, why don't we try moving forward on the thing that we can move forward on now, which is 13 acres? Why don't we separate the sale and the junior high and just talk to the village about 13 acres? And then when we're closer to being done with the junior high, we can talk about the junior high.
I would like to propose that I think it's clear that we need some more discussion on this. I'd like to see if we can schedule a meeting at another time where we can actually talk about this and what makes sense to separate out, what the village needs from us along the timeline. I think understanding what Kelly's going to provide us in terms of the phasing is going to help us make decisions. So I think there's some components of information that we still need, and I think it would make a lot of sense to schedule a meeting to discuss just the topic, because it seems like we have enough to discuss to have a meeting all on its own, a special meeting to discuss these 3 different entities and what that looks like.
We can certainly do that. I would tend to disagree. I don't think it's a lack of information, a lack of details. I think we've got a philosophical difference on this. That's just me.
I don't disagree. More discussion, but we talk about more in closed session tonight.
We talked about transfer property in closed session. I suggest we add that tonight, and we can do that. Anything else right now? Well, we got the village on the WebEx.
I just want to say that we had several constituents email the board, and they heard from more about scheduling a joint meeting to discuss these agreements. And I have to agree, because while we are elected to make these decisions, I think it's important that we give the opportunity to our constituents to be a part of those meetings and be a part of the discussion.
Okay. All right. Sean and Patrick and
Kelly.
who?
Kelly.
Kelly, yes, I'm sorry, Kelly. Thank you for being here. People disappear, their faces are there, and then there's just white blocks, so I lose track of people. Thank you for being here tonight, and we'll continue to discuss. It sounds like.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm going to follow up on that information you sent here today. Thanks so much, but I will have some follow-up questions, so that's okay.
I have a question. Hey, Kenny, did you say that we've gotten a lot of email from people about this as a board? Because I don't have anything. So did it come today or something? I'm looking back. I don't see anything.
I received emails.
Yeah, I thought it went to the whole board, but maybe it did just go to me. Let me check, and I will.
I haven't either.
I will add this, I guess, and I'm going to say this tomorrow night as well, but as far as communication with immediate people contiguous to the junior high, the neighbors to your east have all discussed this internally or amongst themselves. And I got an email tonight from one of their representatives saying that, they basically look forward to some kind of cooperation between us, because they much rather prefer to see a rec center than anything unknown, and unknown being unknown development. So certainly they equate the rec center to be a very similar land use as the current school is. I think that would be the sentiment for most people who probably lives around the school now. But again, I can share that email with the Board of Education as well, just so you guys have it for your reference.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody.
Lori, those emails were on Sunday evening. It wasn't a lot of emails. It was just a few.
Okay, because like I don't have any, and I mean, I try to keep up with them too, so.
I know there's been a lot coming in, but it did go to the board.
All right. We'll carry some of that discussion into closed session later on. Right now, let's go to item 2, class rank.
Thanks for coming.
I saw Mr. Benedict here somewhere. Where did he go? There he is.
Before we get to the meeting, that a price in closed session, not discuss the selling of property in closed session.
I'm sorry, what comment?
We couldn't hear you.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Okay, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm just Act only permits you to discuss the setting of the price.
Yep, that's what you said. Sales price. That's what I wrote down.
I think it allows her to discuss transfer property.
It actually doesn't. You can only discuss the setting of a price in the closed meeting, in the closed session per the Open Meetings Act. All other discussions have to be held in open session.
We could at least talk about that.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that then. Okay. Class rank.
Hello, Mr. Benedict.
Good evening. Excited to be here this evening. It was good to have our staff back in the building today for the first time for a long time. We went through some great training today that I think just hopefully put some people's minds at ease a little bit. And but it was really good to see our staff back in the building. I can't echo enough. Just you forget that feeling of having people around. So that was good. And excited to bring our students online and in person on Wednesday as well. I'll just share. This is not on the agenda, but I'll share with you. One stat is I checked in with Amy Shore. We still have about 80 families that we're waiting to hear from in regards to registration. But right now we're at 1,003 students at the high school. That includes our students that go out to our service schools as well. So we're probably around 990 somewhere in that neighborhood of in-person learners, or excuse me, total students at the high school right now. Still a few families that we've still got to hear from, so that may number may fluctuate, but certainly up a little bit probably from where we were last year.
We've never been over 1,000, have we?
I don't believe so, no. No, that's not something we probably anticipated either. So we'll see. I'm assuming some of those families may have moved and just have a so that number may go down. Tonight, I'd like to talk to you about two things. And it's in regards to the academic recognition plan that we've been discussing for a while. And I'm going to touch upon that first, and that's in regards to the class of 2025. And then I'm also going to circle back and talk to how this might impact current students at Mahomet-Seymour High School. One of the things that we do every summer is we have a division head retreat where the leaders of the school, we get together and we go through a number of things in relation to our building. And last summer, one of our topics was the discussion of class rank and how it pertains to our students. And so we started having a conversation about that with our leadership team. And as we grew into the school year, our leadership team took it back to their divisions and had conversations with their staff. And we had a lot of conversation in our building on what that would look like. And we came to the conclusion that that there are a lot of things going on in academics that would cause us to consider about maybe redoing what we do as far as an academic recognition plan, or specifically class frame. And so we have a plan in place, and then the pandemic came, and now here I am now presenting to you the plan. So this plan would be for the class of 2025. That's our target class, the 8th grade class currently. We would eliminate the use of class frame in all successive classes after that. And there's a lot of questions about how we would recognize kids. And what we propose is that we did a percentage. The top 10% would be the highest honors, and then 11 through 30% would be honors. Just provided some data in the back in the board packet that shows what that looks like over the last 5 years and the number of kids that would involve. It would honestly recognize more kids than what we've currently been recognizing as far as just a traditional top 10. We looked at several different schools as far as how to handle a valedictorian or salutatorian, and then the idea of commencement speech. Where we landed on is that students, where a lot of schools have success with their commencement speeches, is students submit to speak, and they submit to a panel of teachers and administrators, and then there's a criteria that the speech teachers use, what they use in speech class, a rubric, and then they would present their speeches, and it's voted upon by a panel of people on who would speak. Mr. Leibarger spent some time when we have college recruiters come into Mahomet-Seymour to visit with our kids. He would visit with all the college recruiters, and class rank is something that is really it's starting to trend away. In a lot of schools, a lot of colleges and universities don't use it as a deciding factor. There are some scholarships out there that impact class rank. We could still track class rank specifically in Skyward and make that available to an individual student if they need that information. They wouldn't necessarily, they might know they're number 10 in their class, but they wouldn't know who's 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So we could still provide that if it came down to scholarship. We also felt like that it was important that scheduling is a big deal for our families and our kids, and so that introducing this to 8th graders now is an adequate time to plan their schedules and taking classes that they want accordingly. So those are our thoughts in regards to an academic academic recognition plan in regards to the freshmen. I'd like to then just come back and just say that with the pandemic, everything is new. And I would say within the last 2 weeks, as our counselors have begun scheduling kids and kids have started looking at their schedules, one of the things that's been brought to light that I think we need to go back and examine as a building with our leadership team and our staff is, I'll use this example. If a student was a sophomore last year during the pandemic, and say they were in AP biology, they get a certain number of points towards a class rank. Well, we didn't give those points because we suspended GPA with the pandemic, which I still think was the right thing to do. However, if that same class goes now this year, say that sophomore class goes to a junior, and another student takes AP biology, now you have, it's not an equal playing field. That student gets credit for AP biology, where as a junior, and then a sophomore didn't. This is new. This is just a problem that's kind of, or an obstacle that's come up here in the last couple of weeks. And just to be frank, there's been a lot of planning going on to get school open, so it's not something that we dove into a lot. My thought would be to take this back to our leadership team, much the same process, and talk through it with our leadership team and get feedback from our leadership team, our staff, student council, principals advisory council, which are both student driven groups, and see where we're at with these things. I want to have this process done by November, because I think November, early December, because I think when students come back after winter break, they start scheduling their classes. So we have to, present to them what's going on. I don't think we should impact seniors with this. I think their work is kind of done. They're in the chute, so to speak, to finish. So I think, but going back and examining and getting some input from our staff and our students on what this looks like for our current freshmen, sophomore, and juniors is where we have some conversation. So that's just to summarize. Go back about, I think, our freshman class of 2025. We'd like to move forward with the academic recognition plan we've outlined, and then further conversation about the freshman, sophomore, junior class currently at the high school.
Okay, so your recommendation is we institute this with which class?
The 2025 class, I think, is kind of a separate issue, Max, where I think we could put that in place. And that was kind of the thought of our team, even before the pandemic.
Correct.
We had done work on this. And now, like I said, as we, I think we're going to find a lot of things from the pandemic we're going to have to be flexible and fluid and adjust to. And I think this is something we need to go back and recognize with our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors.
So it would impact the current 8th grade class, then, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, questions for Mr. Benedict?
Appreciate all the work you put in on this, Chad. I know it's a crazy time and you've got a lot going on, but appreciate the thoughtfulness of this.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
I like the logic you've got in delaying from the current states. I actually support that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, I want you to stay in the room if you would, please. Okay. We're going to go next to a related matter, and that's policy 630 that ties into this. Dr. Schultz.
Hey, Max.
Yeah.
Consider clock. Are you going to look at the remaining agenda items?
I am. We have one more action item after this one. Well, no, we didn't. And we're going to move as quick as we can. I don't see anything much that's optional here. Dr. Schultz.
Thank you.
The rest of these should be fairly quick items.
I'm sorry?
Merle asked me about the time, and I said the remaining items should be fairly quick, I think. So go ahead, please.
Okay. I have an interest in this topic, as you know, because I talked about it last time and now in this meeting. I have been talking with Chad over the past several days, and we have both come to the understanding of what Chad just said a few minutes ago, that there are issues that have been brought up that we certainly would like to make sure this happens for sort of the way future classes, but need to also address some of the issues with the current student, but not particularly the seniors this year as they are in the chute. And so as we have discussed this and want to take the opportunity to be able to discuss it further, it is my recommendation that we postpone, and I make a motion to postpone this policy discussion until the November board meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. The motion to table further discussion on this until November. Chad, does that give you the time need?
Yes.
Dr. Schultz, would you be interested in discussing this more at the high school with Mr. Benedict in the meantime?
Can I just clarify something?
Sure. Dr. Hall has a question.
Colin, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. I do have some questions though.
It was the question, would I be willing to discuss it further?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. And we've begun discussing that, yeah. Yes, for sure, I would be willing, able, and excited to discuss it further.
So I'm confused about what we're tabling. Because what needs to be discussed further is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, I just want to get some clarification here. What needs further discussion is problem solving around the issue of the kids whose class rank has been impacted by COVID, who are currently in the high school.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that needs to be further fleshed out, and needs to be discussions about what to do with that. But that is completely separate from eliminating class rank, starting with the class of 2025. So in tabling Mrs. Schultz's proposed policy, her proposed policy is about eliminating class rank right now.
Correct.
Actually, my policy is just.
Chad needs some direction for his team to be able to proceed ahead with the elimination of class rank for the class of 2025. I mean, I know it seems really, really early for kids who are like in 2 days going to start 8th grade, but I don't know that we should wait until November to.
What is the harm of postponing this until Colleen and Chad can have a chance to discuss this in its totality and come back in November? I'm not sure why we can't just postpone these discussions till they can get together for some planning and discussions.
They're two completely separate issues though, and I think that Chad can move, if the board approves, or the Chad can move ahead with the elimination of class rank starting with the class of 2025. Conversations absolutely can and should continue to occur about the other issue related to the students whose GPA or class rank has been impacted by COVID.
That's not the motion on the table.
But Chad and I have discussed this and both agree that this whole issue needs more discussion. And so we are going to talk about it and not make any decisions about it until November. And come back in November and have a discussion with the board about it.
My conversations has been twofold. One, what I've shared, I think we have two things going on tonight. The original plan that our leadership team was put together for the class of 2025 is they're not necessarily impacted by, they are impacted by COVID, but not by class rank currently at the high school. So that plan was already in place by our leadership team. I agree that I think we need to take some of the concerns back for our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors back to our leadership team and talk through some of those issues as we've seen some scheduling and stuff about that. So in my mind, it's similar, but it's different.
So here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing for the class of 2025, we're all kind of good with that thing and proceeding that way. What we're not sure about is these other classes in between. And you want to do a little more work on what the impact might be, and Dr. Schultz is willing not to bring that to a discussion to vote tonight, so we can kind of work through that a little bit. Is that a fair summary of what we're doing here?
To table it, yes, I believe that's correct.
Are you there, Colleen?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Is my understanding that the motion here is that we table my proposal until November? That was what's on the floor.
Correct.
Okay. And the rationale is you and Chad are going to talk about the impact on the classes before the 2025 class.
Correct.
Okay, you've got a motion and a second table. Is there any more discussion on that? Vote on table, I guess, please.
Giles,
Yes.
Keith,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. Number 4, memorandums of understanding, Dr. Hall.
Thanks, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you.
This MOU is the result of ongoing conversations and meetings with the MSEA and covers the work that we, as it's defined, and as, because it looks different under our reopening plan for our teachers. And because we have discussed and in the reopening plan said that we would possibly we do have as a goal to go back full-time in person on October 1st. The MSEA asked and we agreed that this would expire on October 1st. So this covers the first part of the school year, and we will continue with our meetings and discussions with the MSEA moving forward. But this is a start of an understanding that the workday looks different.
Superintendent approves the recommends the board approves the memo of understanding as presented. My mask is getting in my way. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the memorandum of understanding?
I would just like to understand who on the board negotiated with this with the MSEA.
It's been Dr. Roll and myself, Heather Smith, Derek Halfar, Meg Jones, and James Heinel, bringing it to you for your approval. There hasn't been a board member in the room. There have been other MOUs brought forth to the board in the same way in the past.
Typically, MOUs come as a result of the communication meetings between the administration and the union. Other questions on this? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Larson,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Giles,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yes. Yes.
Keith. Thank you. Keith,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. Next is revised policy 6240, Dr. Hall.
Just bringing this back with suggested changes. Doubt highly, I don't see any overnight trips in the near future. So if the board would, either way, I'm just suggesting if this is an item that wants to be tabled, it could be, but at the same time, it's been brought back a couple times and it has the requested changes in the policy and the procedures.
Okay, so it's been brought back a couple times. We've got the changes. Questions or comments from board members?
I support this policy. I have a concern about the practice of including a reference in a board policy to an administrative procedure manual that has been withheld from the board and is not available to the public or staff. So to fix that issue, I would suggest we amend the policy by replacing the first instance of Administrative Procedure 620 with policy 620 exhibit 1, and the second instance of administrative procedure 620 with policy 620 exhibit 2, and then to label the two, the form and the guidelines afterwards, policy 1 and policy 2. And that way we aren't referring to an administrative procedure manual in our policy, but we'll just include it in the policy. So nothing in the policy would change in any way, just the wording to not make it circular.
Sorry, was that a motion, Colleen?
I will move the chaperone policy 6240 as presented with the changes I just stated. Replace the first instance of administrative procedure 620 with policy 620 exhibit 1, and the second with policy 620E2, and label those two exhibits.
I second that.
Colleen, would you mind sending me that? This is Dawn.
Oh, sure, Dawn. I can type that up.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got a motion. Was there a second?
I seconded it.
Thank you. Discussion. Dr. Hall, does that work okay?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? Roll call, vote, please.
Hennessy,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Key,
Yes.
Giles,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
McComb.
Yes. COVID update. Dr. Hall.
This is an opportunity to address any questions or concerns about COVID-19 related issues or items. I don't have anything. We had as Mr. mentioned, I just would add, we had our staff back in the building today. Everything went really well, and looking forward to having our kiddos on Wednesday. For some of them, for some of our kids, their first day in person will be Thursday.
One of the questions that I have is a lot of the school districts that have made recent decisions to go to remote only have made those decisions based upon the IDPH cleaning requirements. It looked to me like we have students responsible for wiping down desks. The IDPH has been very specific about students not touching disinfectant wipes or disinfectants of any nature. So I'm concerned about our ability to follow those regulations under our current cleaning plan.
Go ahead. Actually, the students will not, this is Nita, you can't see me. The students will not be dealing with any disinfectants that are toxic. We had a big training session with all of our custodians this past week, and all of the wipes that are being referred to, the IDPH guidance that talks specifically about toxic chemicals and disinfectants, everything that we are using is either food grade sanitizing cleaning supplies that you use on cafeteria tables so you can use your toys. It's either food grade or it's non-toxic, specifically stated on the MSDS that it's non-toxic and safe for use by children. The disinfectant will only be used by our custodians at the end of the day after all students are out of the building.
So I guess I'm confused then about how we are considering the desks, I guess specifically at the junior high and high school. Well, I don't know, I guess at the elementary school too. How are we disinfecting those between students sitting in them then?
This is Steve. During the day, the teachers and the students will be cleaning the desks, again, we're not using a disinfectant, but strictly just cleaning the desks, which according to CDC and other experts, that's half the battle right there. So after each use, they will clean the surface, and which will leave it in a good enough state so when our custodians can come and actually disinfect everything at night. We don't have to disinfect immediately, But as long as the surface is clean and dry, it can be used with the students.
The other thing that they're doing, Megan, is that at the high school, I spoke with the high school teachers today, and at the junior high, the high school, and even at Lincoln Trail, they're alternating desks. So as classes come in, they're having, like, for example, the classroom I was in today, the kids, there are 15 kids, they'll sit at every other desk. The next they'll wipe down those desks with the cleaner that takes away. We actually did a little video that kind of shows how the cleaner works, and that we were assured by our vendor that cleans adequately in between. And then the next class that comes in is going to sit in the opposite desks. So those desks are going to be alternated. They'll be cleaned, and then they're going to be left for a while before the next kids would come in. So they're alternating desks in a lot of the classrooms as well. So the cleaning that we're going to be doing during the day is going to augment and wipe down, you know, the door handles, things like that. All that's going to augment the disinfecting practice that then takes care at the end of the day. As far as the food grade sanitizing for toys and balls and things like that, that sanitizes. And again, it's not toxic, and it's food grade for kids. And then, and again, in those classrooms, even the custodians at the end of the night are going to come in and spray an oxidized disinfectant or over all the classroom things, so that dries overnight and it's ready to go for the next day. And then we also, along with that, after every class, we're asking the kids to use hand sanitizer, we're asking the kids to wash their hands, we're asking the teachers to wash their hands. So everything that they're doing, we're encouraging them after they're doing anything to wash their hands, which is the next thing too. Wearing masks, washing their hands, distancing as much as possible, and then we're cleaning in between. But we're not letting them use Clorox wipes or anything that's toxic, that's going to be continually abrasive on their hands.
And do we have enough wipes? Because I was doing some math the other day, and it seemed like just for the junior high and high school, if they were going to do that for every desk in between classes, between now and October 1st, we needed about 200,000 wipes just for those two buildings. Do we have that amount of wipes available?
Supplies are a challenge. The supplies are starting to come in right now. We have substantial supplies on order with commitments from a couple of different vendors. So I can't guarantee 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, but I can guarantee that we're lining them up and getting everything ready to start. There's been a few challenges with some of the materials, but we've pretty well got that resolved. So I'm confident that the supplies are going to be there. There's new manufacturers that have popped up to meet the demand. So it's been very beneficial to us. It gives us a couple of different sources to come up with the wipes, and working with the bucket program that we put in plan, which is consistent with what most schools are doing.
Okay, and sorry, just so all of those vendors are food grade wipes, not disinfecting wipes, is that right?
Yes, yes, yes. We have the surety from them.
What's the product called that those wipes are?
They're the bucket and the wipes come in basically dry. The material that the chemical that we're using is SC Johnson. It's a neutralized cleaner. It's something that we currently use in the buildings right now. The neutralized cleaner allows us to, at a dilution rate that we're using it to allows everybody to touch it with their hands, wipe the surfaces down to clean the surfaces, and then without any hazard to the user. The Husky 824 is the disinfectant that we'll use with the custodians, and they'll come in and spray the surfaces, and that has a kill time of 10 minutes. So they can disinfect anything during the process.
So,
again, the SC Johnson is a product we currently use in the buildings right now.
And are these, have they been shown to kill coronaviruses?
The Johnson product that the staff and the students will be using isn't necessarily a kill, but it is a wipe clean. So they'll wipe the surface clean and eliminate the virus from the surface and dispose the rags, and they'll wash your hands and move on. But the disinfectant that we're using, yes, it does kill the coronavirus. That's confirmed.
So will the
And
students?
again, we're using a harsher chemical. We're using disinfectant with our custodians, and they'll spray that in the evening. During the day, we'll just clean the surfaces multiple times in preparation for disinfecting. And this is a process that our suppliers have, has indicated is supported by the CDC and meets requirements for cleaning and disinfecting.
Will the children be allowed to wash their hands after using these wipes?
Yes.
They can wash their hands as often as they want. We're encouraging them to wash their hands often during the day, along with using hand sanitizer. And the wipes, actually, the wipes are non-toxic. So the wipes are something that they can take and wipe their hands off. So unlike a Clorox wipe that has a bleach component to it or something like that, these are non-toxic and are safe for use by children. And we have MSDS papers on all of those to show what the products are and what the concentrations and what's included in them, so that they're not the same as a chemical like a Clorox wipe is, which we can't get. But
And we would avoid for touch by
right.
students and staff.
So the rules that IDPH put out recently just says that cleaning and disinfection products should not be used. Are you interpreting that guidance to be only products that are based on toxic chemicals?
it says the word toxic in there. It talks in there about the disinfecting products and toxic chemicals should not be used by students. And so
well, it's talking about ventilation when it talks about toxic fumes. It actually just says cleaning and disinfection products should not be used.
I would like to see that because what the staff and students will be using is just a cleaning product. It's not a chemical. It's not a toxic. It's not a hazard of any kind. It's basically, it's at this point just a soap, a cleaner, a neutralizer, something would be of a household line. What the custodians will be using is a chemical and is a would have to be used by a professional. It's of course it's diluted too for this appropriate use, but that's not something that students or teaching staff would be involved with.
So if a student is in class and they come down with a fever and go down to the office and are evaluated and so on, is the plan to take the other kids out of the class while the space is cleaned by the maintenance staff?
If there's a scenario is created where a student is determined to be ill, yes, I would think we remove the students out of the way so custodial staff can come in and properly clean and disinfect the areas that the student was in. What I can't answer what staff would do with the students. That's somebody else's realm, but ideally, yes, the area would be vacated so we can come in and properly clean and disinfect. And I put the emphasis on the word clean because it's a two-step process. So we would come in and clean all the surfaces, the floors, and hard surfaces, whatever the kids are involved with, and then disinfect. And depending upon the location, the severity of the situation, and so we might disinfect twice, once with the disinfectant that we're using at night for a 10-minute kill, and we might also hit it with the total 360, depending upon the surfaces and so forth.
Ken, that's also going to depend. I mean, that's also going to depend on what the child is sent to the office for. I mean, if I have a kid that is sent to the office just because, and we have this a lot, because the kid says, my stomach hurts, I feel good. Well, it's math and they don't like math. If they don't have a fever, or if that kid goes home with a fever, they have an ear infection, that doesn't rise to the level of cleaning and removing all of the kids out of the classroom. And part of that's going to depend on the circumstance. So a lot of that's going to be on a case-by-case basis, and depending on where the kid was, what was happening in the classroom. And that's one of the reasons that with the small classes it helps, because we can identify that and we can identify the contact and how close they were. Because in a lot of cases, if a student turns up positive, that's a whole different thing. Then we're going to look at who might have been exposed. We're going to do deep cleaning in that classroom. The custodians are going to come in, and we have a whole different scenario that we're going to be mitigating on a case-by-case basis. So it's difficult to say that every single time a student is sent to the office, we're going to clear the classroom, because that's not going to be reasonable.
And just for clarity, Ken, my description was based on a worst-case scenario. It was if somebody was positive and we needed to go and do a deep cleaning, but we are still prepared to respond to, as they normally do, especially with younger children, if somebody gets sick or if there's some sort of an incident, with polyglues or whatever, we will respond to it accordingly. And then, of course, we'll be working with the, with Nita and the rest of the administrative staff to see what we need to do.
Okay. So I also had questions about PPE. How many N95 masks does the district have on hand?
None. And I can tell you right now, N95s, which are what are used in the hospitals and what are used by the healthcare providers, and they can't get enough of them. Our supplier right now can't get them. The other thing is that there's a cost about $18 to $25, $25 for the questionnaire, $25 for the fitting, because each of those masks have to be fitted, and then you have to buy the masks, which we can't get. And those masks are not meant to be multiple use masks, like cloth masks that you wash. What we can get, a few, are KN95 masks, which don't have to be fitted. I also have shields I have enough for every staff person if they want them. So we can use the masks, we can use shields. My health EOPs are going to be trained. They all have a shield. If a student comes down that's actively ill, they'll have a KN95 mask, they'll have a shield. I have some shields that are being made that actually have a mask attached to the bottom. So the cloth actually comes down chest level. So not only do I have a plastic shield in front of their face, but then I have cloth as well. So we're taking a lot of steps to try to overcome the challenges of what are in the healthcare settings, because we don't rise to the level of a hospital where I have people that are like that a gown and gloves and shields and hazmat suits and all that. Most of the time, a lot of the kids that are going to come in, honestly, when we're doing our screenings and stuff, the kid that's going to be the one that probably affects the most people is going to be the one that just walked by us. The one that comes in with a fever probably has strep throat. I mean, that's just the way that's kind of going to work this year. And we're going to have to be very diligent about taking care of that. But a lot of times, from all the kids that we've seen so far, the parents that I've talked to, the thing that is the most prevalent right now seems to be the extreme fatigue, the loss of taste and smell. With little kids, sometimes it's gastro. They have nausea and vomiting. Fever is not the first thing that we see. So we're really going to have to be diligent with some of that, because if a kid has a sore throat, a headache, and an upset stomach, and they're 6, and it's strep season, they may have strep. So we're going to send them home. We're going to recommend they see their doctor. And then if they get an antibiotic for strep, they can come back up to 24 hours. And that's a best case scenario. So we have all of our screening tools that we're going to keep in place. We're providing equipment to our staff to keep them safe. And honestly, the people that are doing all the wellness checks, they're having a 30-second interaction as the kids go by. They're not on top of the kids all day, every day. So we're looking to provide more stringent protections
for our paraprofessionals who work with our special needs children, for our health EOPs, for those people that are going to have more one-on-one interaction with children who may be sick on any given day. They can't distance from them to teach them. Those teachers who can teach in the front of a classroom, who can distance more easily, their level of PPE does not need to be the same. So we're trying to look at all those different scenarios to provide what people need.
Sure, I understand. And I know you're dealing with just a completely crazy situation to try and manage the logistics and the procedure and all that. But my question is more about, are we following the rules that IDPA forward? Because like Colleen, I've reached out to other districts that have chosen to delay or switch to virtual for the start, and they've said it's about the PPE, not the disinfection, because like you said, you can't get the N95 mask, and that's what IDPH has said is required for the maintenance staff and for anyone that is evaluating or assessing a student's symptoms. So,
and I don't even use an N95 mask in my office, and I see 30 patients a day.
It's not required either. These are recommendations. And then a statement that came out 2 days after this says none of this supersedes what was sent out for their transition opening that was sent out earlier in the summer. These are recommendations based on questions that they've gotten statewide. And to Dr. Hendrick's point, N95s are reserved for intensive care units and those situations that you have a person that is actively very ill with COVID. And even then, a lot of those people can't get enough N95s and they're being made to reuse them. That's been one of the complaints all through this thing, that they can't get enough of what they need for emergency situations. So we certainly, I feel like the person that's helping us with the shields and the things that we're taking steps to do, I feel like that I think that we're taking good steps to comply. And our policies and our plans have been approved twice now by Champaign Public Health. And all of those things are in there. So every time these come through, I read them. The toxic fumes are not going to be an issue. That's what this is addressing with the cleaners. The PPE, we're doing the very best we can. And honestly, the only time one of our staff needs to gown up is if some kid's going to puke on it. And even then, I mean, that's going to happen, whatever, because this is a respiratory virus. We have to wear masks. We have to wash our hands. We have to distance and move forward and do the very best that we can. I think that I have 2,200 shields sitting in my little stash that I'm doling out to anybody who's uncomfortable, gets a shield. They don't even have to have a reason. If they want a shield to wear with their mask, all they have to do is tell me, and I'll give it to them. So my hope is that will help alleviate some concerns.
So
I was in a meeting today with 10
understand.
different districts, and I was in a meeting today, just so you know, just to help, with 10 different district people, okay, not our district, 10 different districts, plural, and nobody's gotten a 95. We're just wearing masks. So that's 10 districts.
And they're going back in person?
Yep. Ken, which districts have closed because of lack of N95s?
I don't know. Well, there's some districts in the Chicago area.
Okay. Minor districts in Champaign County, Karen.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, though, that we are declining to follow the instructions of CUPHD and IDPH now. I understand we're doing the best we can with the situation we have, and I appreciate that. but it doesn't change the fact that we're not following the directions or recommendations of these two expert organizations.
That's not true. I think actually we are following the recommendations. These are not mandates. Again, I've talked at length with the public health as well. And in this document, it says right here, using a face shield and other methods of protection are not available or appropriate. So we're taking a step further and providing shields that actually have a mask attached to them to try to add extra protection. So it's not just coming to their chin. That the cloth part can be cleaned, it can be taken off. The plastic part is going to keep anything from coming through, and they can wear a mask with the shield. And I do have a limited stock on the way of KN95s, but even those are very cost prohibitive. And so part of the challenge is not only supply, but cost. And we literally are saying that everybody has to wear a mask. So if all of the kids are wearing a mask, all the teachers are wearing a mask, then that's not 100% guaranteed, but that's way better because a lot of places, they're not making them wear masks at all. So it's no wonder that their staff are trying to get N95 masks because nobody else is doing anything to be protected.
So with respect to masks, I just want to make sure that I understand our policy is that under no circumstances will anyone in the building be allowed to remove their mask. Is that correct?
The IDPH says right here that people can remove it when they eat. It says when they're outdoors or physical distancing, when they're playing a musical instrument outdoors. So the article, the document that you're quoting from says that it can be removed at those times. The only time a staff, so these are the only times that masks can be removed. The only other time is ISB came out today, which is only common sense, that if you have a person who has an office all to themselves, nobody else is in there, they're sitting in their office with their door closed and nobody's in there, there's no reason that they can't take their mask off. But if they're with students, they have to wear a mask or a shield or both.
Okay, so great. So teaching, if you're inside teaching, masks 100% of the time.
Yes. And I have several staff who have requested a shield, so they're going to do both. And the reason that we created these new shields with a mask attached is because we have a number of hearing impaired students that they need to see the teacher's face. So these shields will allow them to have the mask that covers from their shoulders to their chest at the bottom of the shield, but then the students that are hearing impaired will be able to see the teacher's face the whole time. In addition, the paraprofessionals that work most closely with some of our special needs students are going to have those shields with the extra protection as well. And if they're still more comfortable, they can still wear an additional mask. And if it's a situation like with our health EOPs, if we have children that are coming in, they're ill, not only do they have the shield, but I do have, as I said, we ordered today, we have a few KN95 masks that are the next step down from N95, but they don't have to be fitted. And as Dr. Hendricks alluded to, most of our healthcare facilities, locally clinics, are using masks. I mean, maybe they're using disposable. I'm not sure what you use in your office, but a lot of people are using either cloth or the disposable masks, and we have both of those. I have both.
Do we know of any students who are unable to wear masks for medical reasons? And if we do, what is our plan with those kids?
Yep, I have two. And our plan is we had several meetings on this even today. Our plan for those students is that those students are special needs students. So they have a letter from a physician saying that they are unable to wear a mask. In the one case, the mom is fine. We try to get the child to be able to wear a shield. If that's the case, then we'll try to have her wear one of the shields that has the added protection.
I think
be careful about identifying students in an open public meeting. I appreciate the question,
Yeah.
but that makes sense. But just.
We can talk, as a policy, can we talk about it as a policy? I'd just like to understand what we're doing policy-wise.
Yeah, that's a great approach. Yeah, in general, I mean, what we would do is we provide this mask, because I was gonna say, we provide the extra shield for a student, and this would be for any student that for whatever reason they couldn't. And then we also would provide more distancing for that student. So we're gonna take extra measures, and again, it's gonna be a case-by-case basis. It depends on the student, it depends on their circumstance and what they're able to tolerate, and what their classroom's gonna look like.
And if those kids are in with gen ed kids, is that class and the parents going to be made aware that they have a circumstance in the class where a child will be masked?
I don't know that that's the case. I think that we have to, again, I have to wait and see what the circumstance is for any particular child that comes through. And then I deal directly with the teacher, and we deal directly with the teacher and with that particular parent to work out the best mitigation for the student.
I'm sorry, I mean the other students' parents in those classes, will they be notified that there's a student that won't be masked in the class with their students?
Not necessarily. Again, it's going to depend on the situation, because again, as Dr. Hall just pointed out, we have to be very careful with privacy and policy. And if I have one student in a building that's not wearing a mask, I don't know that that's good policy. If the teacher is talking to parents and parents have concerns, they certainly can email me, but I'm not going to give information about another student to a parent. It's kind of like some other situations where I have parents that call and tattle, if you will, on about something that happens. I'm not going to discuss another student's situation with anyone other than their parent. So I think we have to be very cautious about that.
I totally understand the privacy issue. I guess where I'm nervous is that from a legal perspective, our policy is you have to be masked, and parents are sending their kids with that understanding. And if that's not the case, I worry that parents are going to have a set of expectations that we're not fulfilling.
The policy says they have to be masked unless they have a medical reason that they cannot, and if we have a doctor's note. So, and if that's the case, then we are taking extra steps to protect the rest of the students in the class, along with any staff and the child that's affected.
Okay, any other COVID issues?
Just a thank you to all of the work that's been done and put into the staff. I didn't say anything earlier, but I've been in a school, I see what it's like. I was in a meeting with 10 different districts today, and it's a lot of work, and I'm appreciative of that. And I just remember that we all need to be patient and show grace, because it's ever changing, and we don't have a perfect plan because there is no perfect plan. So we're not behind.
What's the percentage of families that have decided to let their kids attend in person? Do they know?
About 75% are in person.
So there's a good level of trust in our community. I think there's 75% of our campus who are saying that they're willing to let their kids attend in person.
Right. And we've had some very positive feedback about the plans that we put in place. And so again, as Lori said, no plan is perfect, but we have to get started. We have to move forward. And then if we find that there are things that we need to do, we'll have to do that. But we can't know that until we
make practice, we'll make progress. That's what I was, yeah.
All right, I just have one final question that I forgot. Like, I've got about 36 people ask me this question, so if I forget to ask it tonight, I'm going to be in trouble. I don't know if this is true or not, but parents are calling me and asking me, saying that they've been told at the junior high and high school level, kids that are e-learning from home will not have the ability to interact with their teachers or their class over the webcam because there aren't audio capabilities. Is that a true statement?
No.
So all the classes, webcams have audio, and so there can be an interaction between the students and the teachers, anybody who's learning remotely.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we're being told yes.
Move on.
Okay. Nita, thank you for all your.
Thank you, Nita. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jim.
The closed session is necessary tonight we've got 4 things on the list. 1, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees and their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. 2, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending between a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding should be recorded and entered to the minutes of the closed meeting. 3, the purchase or lease of real property, including discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. And 4, the setting of a price for the sale or lease of a property used by the public body. Is there a motion to go into closed session for those reasons? So moved.
Sorry, we're talking about the purchase of something?
That's what I said.
Okay.
It looks to me like we have Chris Rath, who is raising her hand.
How
do you know that?
I don't.
It's right here on my screen.
Thanks, Megan. We can't see that. All
Okay.
you guys are is white with little letters.
Yeah, I have a list on the right-hand side, so.
Thanks. Chris, from our view, we can't see that you're raising your hand.
Okay. Chris?
I'm waiting to be unmuted.
You are unmuted.
Oh, okay, so you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Everyone can hear me?
We can.
Okay. So one of the things that was just mentioned was that there's about 25% of online learners. No secret that, my youngest is one of them. And I don't believe that the online learners equates a level of untrust. I think it should be viewed as a level of parents who are taking into consideration their family circumstances, more specifically health issues. I'm happy to hear that there are roughly 75% of students who are able to go back into the schools. That's great, but for the roughly 25% of online learners, I have an email from a teacher that specifically says my online learner will not be able to interact while live streaming.
All I can tell you is we're being told that's not the case, and I would encourage you to reach out tomorrow to the principal on that.
I did reach out to the principal, and I have a conflicting report from him. So I'm asking for clarification. Is our online learners going to be able to actually interact during a live stream of the class with the teacher when they have a question as it comes up, or when the class discussion is taking place? Are online learners going to be able to participate in class discussion as it's taking place? Because I'm getting 2 different answers. One from a teacher saying no, one from the principal saying it depends on the tools being utilized by the teacher.
Jared? So if the student is attending remotely and they are attending a live stream of the teacher's lesson, they will be able to interact directly with the teacher and the teacher only. The rest of the students that are attending in person will not be on the same Google Meet as those remote learners. The only person who will be attending physically in the room is the teacher and then those remote students. So the interaction will be between the teacher and those remote learners. Does that make sense, Mr. Rapp?
It does, although I guess I think this is where there's been a communication breakdown. I am confused as to whether or not my son specifically, and maybe I should say all virtual learners, are being placed with online only teachers and there are no students in the classroom, or is it the case where the online learners are watching a live stream of a live in-person classroom instruction? That's confusing for me, and it hasn't been really made clear. And my son is asking me, and his anxiety is through the roof, not knowing.
Depends on the age of the student, right?
So 8th grade, junior high.
I don't know the answer to the question.
So 6 through 12, those particular students will be engaged actively with students both in person and remote. It's not just all remote students. K-5, those students primarily.
I didn't understand the question.
I
didn't understand the question. Sorry. Go ahead.
So K-5, the students are typically in all remote classes or all in-person classes. At the junior high and the high school, because the logistics, the fact that they don't have a room that they're in all day, even if they were there, they move from class to class. Those students participate online with the class that's there. So it's different depending on the age level of the child.
So when you say communicate though, how will they be able to communicate with the teacher? And will it only just be with that teacher so other remote students won't be able to?
So the audio will come through the classroom speaker.
The audio, okay.
But the teacher will be the one responding primarily, because the webcam that we utilize will be focused on the teacher. It's not the microphone isn't pointed at the entire class.
Okay, so just so I understand what has been said so far, the technology or webcams that have been put into, I'm speaking specifically like to the junior high classrooms because I have a junior high student, will be focused on the teacher, not the classroom, and that my student or any other online student in that junior high and 10th grade level will be able to interact with their teacher real time?
Yes. So the webcam will either be pointed at the teacher or be pointed at the screen, the whiteboard, for example.
Okay, so I guess I go back to my original question then, because I'm hearing all of you tell me that my child and other online learners, depending upon their age and the school they're in, will be able to interact in real time with their teacher, but yet I have a teacher who I have communicated with that has said that will not be happening.
We will circle back and follow up tomorrow.
We'll follow up with the teacher. We don't know why the teacher said that. Okay.
Okay, couple other. I have a couple things that I would like to be reflected in the record before you go into closed session. It won't take very long.
We do not have provision for public comment now outside of the public comment portion of the meeting.
Actually, on the agenda number 11, on the agenda that was published, on the agenda that was handed out at the meeting tonight, under number 11, it says communication from visitors, and that's what this is.
No, there's no communication from visitors tonight.
Well, then, if you're not going to allow me to have comments as has been published on the agenda and that was handed out tonight, I'm happy to file a complaint with PAC.
Okay. Okay. All right. We've got a
Is that
motion.
what, is that what is happening, so that I'm clear?
That's what's happening.
Perfect. I'll send my complaint to PAC. Thanks for answering my questions.
Thank you.
All right. We have a motion and a second to go into closed session. Is there discussion on the closed session? We have a roll call vote on the closed session, please.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Hennessy,
Yeah.
Schultz,
Yep.
Larson. Yes. Giles.
Yes.
Keith. McComb.
Yes, we'll take about a 10-minute break and we'll come back in closed session. The public feed will be closed down for the night. We are not anticipating any business at the conclusion of closed session. Those who have been listening tonight, thank you for being here and have a wonderful evening.